We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
We didn't need an island game to find out Ian Book sucks.
Whoa, he's a rookie. Come on. You gotta give him 10 more starts at least.
Did you see the stat? I'm obviously overreacting and I'm just making fun of Ian Book because he's a Golden Domer and so are you. But did you see the stat that in the last 24 games, Notre Dame quarterbacks are 0-24?
I did. I did in fact see that. Last win, friend of the pod, Brady Quinn, back in 2012. That is a Deshaun Kaiser stat, though, in my opinion. That's not a Notre Dame quarterback stat. That is 15 of those were our boy Deshaun. Sadly, one of those Ian Book last night. And it's actually why I'm bullish on the prospects of Notre Dame, because they really didn't have great quarterback play over the past decade, over the Brian Kelly era. So I'm not terribly surprised that the quarterbacks that they did produce, they got to the NFL. Well, they didn't win a lot in the NFL.
They have Keaton Slovis now.
They do not have Keaton Slovis now. They went to Pitt. I will say I'm not sure it's turning around anytime soon. I don't think Jack Cohn's going to change that narrative at the next level. I don't think Ian Book's changing that at the next level. So sadly, Notre Dame, not the quarterback haven it may have once been.
The takeaways I had, obviously Ian Book in this offense was horrendous. Brian Flores was in his bag. They win 7 straight. Miami Dolphins on a heater on their way to the playoffs. Jalen Waddle continues to look phenomenal. I think you had him as already a top 15 receiver in the NFL.
I have some blowback on that. Does he not look like a top 15 receiver? Like, that guy gets open at will.
He's awesome.
And they've kind of neutered him in that offense. And I think that's almost like boosting his stocks. The fact that the thing he was kind of billed as, known for, coming out of Alabama, or not known for, but like he was billed as a deep threat. That's what he was at Alabama. That's why you're drafting him top 10. The people were like, who's better, him or Henry Ruggs? To me, it wasn't even close. He was a much better prospect than Henry Ruggs because of this. Henry Ruggs could not do what he is doing right now in the underneath intermediate route running game. Been uber productive. And he's averaging under 10 yards a catch, but like he's catching balls left and right, moving chains. That's what he's doing. Highest grade.
And it's not, but it's also like the role he plays, right? He's averaging less than 10 yards a catch because he's not like running a ton of downfield stuff.
It's because that's what that offense has to fucking be. You try to run him on a deep post, a double move. The offensive line is going to get to
Austin Jackson's going to be sacking Tua Tagovailoa himself by the time he gets open down the field. Something else I want to bring up in this game, Cesar Ruiz, offensive guard for the New Orleans Saints, a former first-round pick out of Michigan. Now 2 years into his NFL career. I don't think he's been on bust watch yet, but he's played over 1,800 snaps in his career, all at pretty much right guard. I think he started the year at center this year, but is playing a lot of right guard now. Sub 60.0 PFF grade in his first year, still a sub 60.0 PFF grade this year. What has been your reaction to Cesar Ruiz? Because he has not gone after the start. I think a lot of people expect it, right?
Yeah, so he was a young prospect coming out. I believe he was 20 when he got drafted.
He's only 22 now.
Only 22 now. So from that perspective, obviously, give him a little time. He's younger than guys who will be drafted in next April. Like a lot of guys coming out, fifth-year seniors, that's what he could be right now. So he still could be a college football player. So from that perspective, it didn't really make sense. It didn't fit in that draft pick when they took him with basically the Saints, how they've built their team in terms of like win now, like guys who can impact the field right away, because he felt like at that age, just where he was as a prospect, that it was probably going to take him a little bit of a learning curve. And also, he was a center at Michigan, and only a center at Michigan. And they had Eric McCoy, one of the best centers in the NFL, who they had just drafted the year prior. And so they draft him to move in positions. Now, obviously, end of year 2, you would hope that you'd be seeing strides by now, but really haven't quite seen that. So it is a little worrisome. I'm not going to put him firmly on bus watch. We've got some better bus watches here later in the show, but it's looking like for the 24th overall pick, you could have done a lot better. especially in that draft class.
Especially a low value position, right? Like if you are drafting, interior offensive lineman, center guard in the first round, you need these guys to pan out, right? Because you are spending high draft capital on positions that make bottom of the barrel money. And if they don't hit, it's like a double miss. Like it's a double. You not only did you not bring in a high value position, but you also didn't even get a productive player at that position.
Exactly. It's like you see it every single year. A guy this year, back end of the second round, Creed Humphrey, draft him, best center. Like you see guys, interior offensive line every single year, middle of day two, end of day two.
Was it Creed a third round
and
pick?
Be able to,
or was he back in the
end of the second round? So you get that pretty much every single year, and that's why we say, unless the guy really is a stud, unless he's really Tyler Linderbaum, Quentin Nelson, whatever, that it's like known what he's going to be at the next level. Using those high draft picks on low value positions, well, swing the bat elsewhere.
One more note on this game. You had Marcus Davenport as a little flyer here you want to call out.
Oh, yeah. So I had the breakout article based off of the preseason. And he was the guy that I wrote in there. Said, if he stays healthy, this is the one I feel the most confident about actually breaking out this season. Because he just looked different when he showed up this preseason. Obviously, he got hurt early on, but now back healthy. Last handful of games has been dominant. 83.8 grade this past week. Tampa Bay, 89.1. Against the Jets, 84.0 for the season now. 90.1 overall grade. Marcus Davenport, he's going to get this fifth-year option, but he is making himself some big-time cash.
Carson Wentz just tested positive for COVID. Out for 10 days because he's unvaccinated.
He's unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Does that drop into week 17? What day are we? Tuesday? No, it won't. So he'll be back for week 17. 18. I always get that fucked up.
But he's on the COVID reserve list. Mm-hmm. If he tested positive, he's out for 10 days. If he was a close contact, it's 5 days as unvaccinated. So ideally he did not test positive and he's back week 18. But that's a huge miss for the Colts, obviously, not having Carson Wentz starting. COVID's hitting hard right now. I think the Raiders line has moved out to plus 7.5 this week, and it's only getting bigger. I think there's a lot of COVID reserve news expected to come out of Las Vegas. This is like, you brought it up on Monday, but like it's damaging the product. But man, this is taking a big swing of the bat to the playoff race, right? Like there's so many teams who are like at 7-7, 8-7, trying to make this push, and it's really going to come down to who's healthiest. And honestly, it's going to come down to who has a high percentage of vaccinations, right? If your quarterback is unvaccinated and he's going to miss a game because of it, that's fucked. Like you're going to get screwed over that. That's
Aaron Rodgers looking smarter and smart for getting COVID early on the season.
Wow. You somehow turn into that. Maybe we should all be eating clay with Shailene Woodley. Let's move to the draft classes. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about this podcast. I think last time we did the first round stuff, we got some blowback. People were a little upset that we didn't even give that many bad confidence level grades.
Did we get blowback? I didn't.
I saw someone was upset. Someone was upset at my 7 for Jamar Chase.
Okay, you were wrong about that.
Maybe I am wrong about that. That's fine. No, it's fine. But we'll move on to, we're going to do team by team, starting with the AFC North and the Cincinnati Bengals. Something I want to do to kind of frame this conversation is non-first round picks that have played over 100 snaps for the Bengals this year. Jackson Carman, the offensive guard, Cameron Sample, the edge defender, Trey Hill, the center, and then Chris Evans, the running back. And looking at when we first graded some of these picks, we gave the Jackson Carman pick an above average selection at pick 46 in the 2021 NFL draft. Cameron Sample, a very good. Tyler Shelvin above average. And then you had Trey Hill, which came in the 6th round, below average was one of those grades. And Chris Evans, a below average pick as well. What are some of your bigger takeaways from this class? And Carmen's the one who's played the most snaps and probably the only one you can really have a legitimate take on.
Wait, we gave Evans a below average?
Yeah. We didn't like it. Yeah, we didn't like it.
Who wrote that? That one's wrong.
Okay, fair.
Because he was 104th on the draft board or something. He got picked 202.
Maybe it was just a running back hate. Someone was also it's 202. The person who's grinding out that blurb is probably
whoever ground out that blurb
is blind.
Do a little better next time. I like that pick, and he's made an impact, I think, in the passing game for them. I think he'll be a mainstay in that regard for the course of his rookie contract. So like that pick. Osai obviously gets hurt early on. I think got hurt preseason, so that one's kind of a wash. Carmen's the one that has seen the field, but can't consistently see the field, has been inconsistent on it. 52.7 overall grade on 367 snaps. And like we said in the preseason, like he just didn't start out great. Showing up heavy, going to clutch. Any Bengals player you see at clutch is always a red flag. Here at the bar in
any
Cincinnati.
Human being at clutch in Cincinnati is a red flag. For those who don't know, who don't live in Cincinnati,
it's the bar where Pac-Man got arrested.
Bar is giving it a lot of. It's like
bar club.
It's like a bar club / den that is
That
like way
has
darker
one-
than it should be.
That has one bathroom. And the Lion, half the time, I've gone there probably 3 times in my life. And about half my time I've spent in that bar has been waiting in line for the one bathroom because it's a one-person bathroom that they have for a whole bar. It's absurd. But Pac-Man got arrested there. And Jack McCarman's
you have a
regular.
friend that like broke the door there?
Yeah. Only got thrown through
That
the door
place
there.
is awful. Like the fact that Carmen was going there is awful.
It's not how you want to start your career.
No, but can I add a little positive to Carmen though? Like, yeah, Carmen's been inconsistent. He started off the year really terribly and has been hurt, but he has like played a lot of different positions, right?
Yes.
In his first year, right guard to start, left guard against Pitt, and he's played left tackle the last few weeks, and like that is obviously super difficult, especially for someone whose size. Who like I remember when we had him on this podcast, he said, teams see me as a top 5 tackle in this draft. I can play tackle. He's getting some of that opportunity now. He has not been horrendous at left tackle. I still think there's some positiveness. And remember, he's a young guy too, only 21 years old, as evidenced by his clutch record. So like he's obviously, I think a guy that can improve. I would not be like worried. And I know we're not going to do confidence level on him panning out for all these players, but like I'm not pressing the panic button anywhere soon for Carmen.
Yeah, that's fair.
On to the Baltimore Ravens.
I think that's safe to say about all of these players.
Yeah, of course. Like anyone who's, there's probably some though that have like fallen off pretty significantly.
It's like if we didn't like it to begin with and you were bad, then I don't know how to describe. Keep going.
Going through Ravens picks here, starting with their pick of the 3rd round. Ben Cleveland at 94, we gave an average grade on first. Brandon Stevens, the cornerback from SMU, he's played the most snaps of any day 2 or day 3 player in their draft class. We gave that below average. Then you have Tylan Wallace, who's seeing more snaps of late in round 4. Wade from Ohio State, Dalen Hayes of Notre Dame, and Ben Mason rounding out their day 2 and day 3 picks. So far this year, only guys that have played legitimate snaps from that group. Brandon Stevens, who's played more safety than corner coming from SMU. Tylan Wallace, over 200 snaps played. And Ben Cleveland has been getting some run of late.
Like Cleveland starting the past couple weeks at guard for them. He's been fine. I mean, he was never going to be. He's not a guy who profiled great in pass protection. He was a guy. He's a line of scrimmage mover. That is what he is. He's an absolute horse. And so I think
he's the guy who has that picture, right, where he looks like Adonis. Like
he's insanely large. He's 6'6" to 360. And it's like proportionally at that size rare for how big that dude is. He looks like a world's strongest man competitor. I mean, he probably could compete legitimately once he retires. Brandon Stevens, though, is the one that was the very first guy drafted at 104 overall in the draft that I had not watched. Was not on my radar as a prospect. He didn't go to the Senior Bowl. Didn't go to. I can't remember.
He's played a
exactly
lot for them
but
this
he's
year.
played a ton and also not been great. He did not grade well at SMU at cornerback. Moves to safety there, and also has not graded well. It's a 39.1 coverage grade.
Yeah,
has a lot of busted coverages. I'm surprised that he's the guy who's gotten so much run early on. And obviously, they have a ton of injuries, but yeah, that one was a head scratcher and doesn't look any less so at this point.
I mean, he's changing positions, right? He's 6 foot 206.
He was a size speed kind of draft pick.
Played a lot of outside cornerback at SMU over the past, in 2020 and in 2019. Did not grade all that well in his final season. Now playing a ton of safety. He started the year a lot of free safety. Now playing more strong safety in the box stuff. Stevens, I think. Obviously, we're not talking panic buttons, but man, he's played a ton of snaps this year. They obviously like something, right? They like something in Stevens, and they've had injuries in the secondary that's probably pushed him on the field more than they wanted to in the preseason. But still, Stevens not panning out, and he's been the guy who's played the most. Shall we get to the Steelers? Steelers next here. Steelers after picking Najee Harris, who we did not like that pick. Obviously, playing running back in the first round, all that stuff. But round 2, Freiermuth, who already has a chant at Heidens Field, or not a chant, but he has got the classic Muth. Freiermuth picked at 55. We like that as an above average grade. We really liked Kendrick Green, the center they picked in the 3rd round out of Illinois. Then they had Dan Moore Jr. out of Texas A&M in the 4th round. Buddy Johnson, also of Texas A&M in the 4th round. Rounding out the group, Loudermilk, Roche, Trey Norwood, and Presley Harvin of that group. Who's been the most impressive?
Well, so they're starting a couple of those guys in offensive line. The most impressive of that bunch has easily been, in my opinion, Pat Freiermuth. Mm-hmm. He looks like a Steelers tight end. I would say he looks like that guy who is going to be very good in the red zone, very good working the middle of the field, not particularly explosive, not particularly dynamic, but your traditional inline tight end and succeed in that role. Now, Dan Moore and Kendrick Green have also been starting with, shall I say, lesser excitement surrounding both. I mean, their offensive line has been nothing short of an issue. Dan Moore probably as a fourth rounder really should not have been starting at left tackle. Kendrick Green was always going to be an issue, was always going to have issues right away in pass protection. Now, he has had some flashes as a run blocker. I still believe in him in that regard. I think he will be good, but 51.4 pass blocking grade on the season so far. They look like a rookie third and fourth rounder.
Exactly. I mean, they're thrown in the fire so quick. They have the most offensive snaps played of any player on their team. Like they're ranked first and second, Dan Moore Jr. and Kendrick Green. I think starting day three rookie offensive linemen, obviously not the situation they want to be in. And that's been reflected in how well Najee Harris has played, right? Like Najee Harris has been contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage at a higher percentage of his carries than any running back in the NFL. And obviously people have kind of beat on him a little bit because he's not as productive as people thought. But man, like breaking a ton of tackles, gaining yards after contact from a percentage standpoint, pretty high. The problem has been he's running behind a pretty dog shit offensive line there in Pittsburgh, which we highlighted, obviously, like kind of confused. They didn't go Tevin Jenkins early or didn't attack the offensive line earlier. Obviously, they felt they could go better elsewhere. How about Trey Norwood? He's played over 500 snaps for this team, or like 300 snaps for this team. He has not graded super well, but didn't you like Norwood coming out?
No, you do that. You've done that like 5 times.
It's Norwood and who's
Trey Brown.
Trey Brown. That's right. The 2 Oklahoma guys. Yeah. I confused them. I apologize. So you didn't like Norwood?
Did not like Norwood coming out.
Well, I thought he's not graded well.
And that's why I didn't really mention him. 365 snaps and just hasn't played well. He was 247th pick in the draft, and I think he didn't make the 250 for PFF. So
gotcha.
There you have it.
Browns. Starting with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was awesome, highly graded pick when this pick was made. We gave it an elite grade. Anthony Schwartz has also seen some run. I think Richard LeCount is playing a lot of snaps for the injury-plagued defense, and Demetric Felton, I think, returns kicks for them, has had some sprinkles on offense. Those are some of the highlights of their day two picks. I think Owusu-Koramoah has exceeded my expectations. And I know we were high on him. I think he was a top 20 player on PFF's draft board, but man, like he has hit the ground running at a position we rarely see that these days. Like him and Parsons, I'm not saying are in the same tier. Parsons is the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year right now. But Owusu-Koramoah, when healthy and on the field, has been wildly impressive. I think they should be really happy with that selection.
It looks like one of the Steelers draft. It looks like he should have gone. I mean, he was 19th on the PFF draft board. That's where you would have rather, if you were Washington right now, who picked 19th, I believe, you would trade Jamin Davis for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah
100%.
right now. You just would. And that's where, like I said, we had him coming out. It looks like a star in the making. Anthony Schwartz is the one who's kind of been odd because I thought he was going to feature heavily in this offense. Week 1, 69 yards, 3 catches. I'm like, yes, like he needs to play. This is what this offense has been missing. But the dude doesn't even have 60 yards since week 1. He has not been featured in that offense, has not been kind of the speed threat, barely sees the field. And some of that, I think, is because he just is not still a receiver. Like, he is still not a guy who he has to run a limited route tree. He can only do a few things. And really, as a route runner, is still very raw. So that was kind of always what you were to expect. I was hoping you'd see a little bit more after, like I said, the week 1 performance. Have not. And the other guy I want to see more of is Tommy Togiai, because he's finally starting to play here later on in the season. He played 25 snaps against Green Bay. That was his season high, made actually a number of plays, 5 tackles in that game. So I want to see more of Tommy Togiai because we were high on him. He was one of our favorite picks also coming out. He was a top 100 player that went 133 overall.
How ugly is this Browns receiving core, man? I think, that was evident. And I don't think we talked a ton about this on the Monday podcast, but when you're forcing it to Donovan Peoples-Jones as like your top guy, you're going to struggle, right? Like Donovan Peoples-Jones has had some highlight reel plays, but he still only has 483 yards on the season. He's not like this consistent mid-level or even short-level separator. And Jarvis Landry, long in the tooth. I think he's been probably the most consistent or most successful guy, but he's also battled injuries this year. No Odell Beckham Jr., and all of a sudden this receiving core is ugly. And Anthony Schwartz has not stepped up, as you said. Demetric Felton has, run like maybe 80 routes this season and has more yards than Anthony Schwartz. It's been a little bit of a disaster. I think that's a position group they might have to attack in free agency, regardless of what they do.
They have to. And like Peoples-Jones, I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, how do you fall to the 6? Look at him producing. And it's like, he's their number 1. Like, he's their top outside receiver, and he has 483 yards in the season. Like, if you go watch the tape, he's really not separating. A lot of his best plays are at the catch point so far this season, and he's been excellent. I mean, in that regard, 16 to 22 contested catches. But when 16 of your 28 catches on the season are contested, that's a worrisome rate.
Yeah.
That is just not sustainable long term. So yeah, they need some guys who can get open.
Onto the AFC South and the Tennessee Titans. Dylan Radins is getting some play of late, but really the guy who's been their day 2, day 3 bell cow has been Elijah Molden, who has really impressed at times. He has a 67.5 PFF grade on the year. He's had some single game grades above 90, but also some grades below that where he's allowed a lot of yards in coverage. He's playing a tough position. You know, we talk about linebackers tough when you're transitioning to the NFL. I think slot cornerback is another one where you're going to allow a high completion percentage. You're going to give up a lot in front of you. It's about tackling. It's about limiting yards after the catch. And he's done that for the most part, right? I think he's done a good job of that. So Elijah Molden, I think, has been a highlight for Tennessee.
Yeah, that's their, I don't want to say lone highlight. There's been other flashes, shall we say. But he looks like a guy who is going to be, like I said, that's your slot corner for his rookie contract. Like he's going to be a quality starter for you. Radins, I'm a little disappointed that he hasn't gotten more run with how much injury they've had up front. And he's kind of filled in at times at guard and whatever. Finally got his first start at left tackle this past week. 8 pressures, not great. But that is a rookie making his first start at left tackle in the NFL against Nick Bosa. That's that ain't easy. Rashad Weaver is the guy I had high hopes for. Was one of my favorite picks for them in this draft. Broke his fibula early on. Haven't seen enough of him. So
he also had that weird off-field stuff that came out, right? And then I think it got dismissed. He was like, I don't remember what it was, but I remember like right after it was like, I don't want to speak to it, but I do remember like some hang up there. I don't remember the details specifically. What about Monty Rice? I remember a lot of people liking Monty Rice coming out of Georgia, the linebacker. He's played a little over 100 snaps and is playing more of late. I think since week 8, he's played over 150 snaps, has not graded all that well. Have you dived too much?
I have not watched Monty Rice, sadly, but he has played 179 snaps.
All right, let's get to the Colts. Colts, I will say, I think the Indianapolis Colts, we dropped the news that they're going to be without Carson Wentz for 5 days at least, potentially 10 days. The draft class here, not a lot of standout performers, man. They haven't had a lot of guys that have even played a ton of snaps for them, let alone had a lot of impact on day 2 and day 3 of their draft class.
Yeah, Dio Odiengbo, their second-round defensive end from Vanderbilt, this rookie year was going to be a wash. He had torn his Achilles last January. You were not banking on him to contribute. This was a long-term, a forward-thinking pick when they made it. So for him to only play 142 snaps so far since coming back, whatever on that. The one guy who I thought after his preseason we would see more of, Michael Strawn, the Charleston wide receiver. Charleston's Division II, I believe. The 6'6" monster, but he only 26 yards this year. Really hasn't played.
Kyle Granson, the tight end, has played the most, and he has not been heavily involved in the offense. He's graded well, though. He's had some good run blocking games where he's played well. Kyle Granson, 6'3", 225, tight end out of SMU, running seldom routes, doesn't have more than 2 receptions in a single game. He's probably been their most notable just because he's played the most snaps, but hoping more from the day 2 and day 3 class. On to the Texans. Davis the Neck Mills.
Davis Mills.
Is he vying for, if not leading, the future at the position? Is he the future at the position? I think people want to know.
All right. So I had people tweeting at me on Sunday after his game, and he played exceptionally well. Like, that was a great performance for a rookie, sure. Tweeting me saying, I've been critical of that pick. And I think this is the reason I'm critical of this pick, is because
you did say it was setting a pick on fire.
Yes, because if he shows flashes, it might convince the Texans to not go after a quarterback this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying with whatever they're going to end up 4th overall pick, 5th overall pick, that it has to be that pick that you use pick on a quarterback. But to tie your hopes to this 3rd rounder who has now 3 games out of his 10 of the season that have graded anywhere near competently, he is still, of all the rookie starters, the lowest graded one on the season of all of them in the NFL this year. To be able to hang your hopes on that guy being the future, it might work out, but also you might just be flushing another year down the drain by doing so. And now it's not like the Texans are in great position to turn things around immediately with the rest of the roster. So maybe that could behoove you to also be cheeks next season. But I just do think that it's still, for as good as that game was, it's still one game out of, a full season. And he has far more turnover he plays this year than big time throws. He is objectively, over the course of this, been a rookie who has some flashes. Not enough for me to go all in on him. And I think that's the worst thing that you could do, is to go all in on this third rounder, and why I said not to do it in the first place.
I don't think they can go all in, but I don't think they'd be crazy to not spend their first round pick on a quarterback, right? And if they want to bring in someone in the second round, you've talked about Malik Willis, and maybe he's falling a bit, but a lot of this will be determined at the Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl has like a lot of the top guys. I think 4 of the top 6 quarterbacks in this class are all going to be at the Senior Bowl. I think a lot will be determined there. You'll hear a lot of reports, rumors, things kind of flowing in what the real draft order will be of those quarterbacks and where they'll go. I think they can take a quarterback and have him compete with Mills, but I think where they need to be a major player if they are going to try and make a legit upgrade is obviously free agency. Like trying to move on from Deshaun Watson and make a decision at the quarterback position in free agency, I think is if they're going to try and swing a big bat and make an upgrade, it's got to be through free agency and not necessarily spending that top pick on Corral or Pickett, and rather, like I said. But Nico Collins is the other rookie I want to talk about from this day 2, day 3 haul for the Houston Texans. He's played a decent amount. There have been flashes where people have gotten excited. He's 4 of 8 in contested situations, only has 2 drops on the year, but still not a single game over 70 receiving yards this year. A lot of that's quarterback play. I feel like, are the flashes something to buy into? I know you didn't really love Nico Collins coming out, but he is an athlete. Where are you at on Nico?
He has one of the lowest charted separation rates against man coverage of any receiver in the NFL. If not, it might be the lowest, actually. I know it's bottom 3 in the NFL, which is not a good starting point. It's not a death knell either. Like Devontae Adams was not a great separator early on, although he profiled more so with like his athletic ability. But
Nico Collins is an athlete.
Not the way
not Adams is. No, I don't think the Adams comparisons. We're not ready for the Adams comparisons with Nico Collins.
I will say Brevin Jordan this past week looked good. Broke a couple tackles, 56 yards, career high. I think he could factor more going forward. I really could not believe he fell all the way to the 5th round the way he did, even though I wasn't super high on him. I thought that was very late. They've had a ton of rookies play, obviously, because they're not a great football team, but that's kind of it in terms of guys to write home about. I will say, though, this came to me the other day. I've talked about Tim Kelly's offense and like him making him just like I liked it when it was with Tyrod Taylor. I liked it this past week with Davis Mills and thought he's factored him into this or I kind of eased him into the NFL really well. And he reminds me a lot of, and now he's not going to get any hype for offense coaching jobs or any sort of like any national hype because Texas offense still objectively sucks. But it reminds me a lot of Nathaniel Hackett, Packers offense coordinator now, when he was OC with the Jaguars, where it's kind of like this offense should have sucked. Like in retrospect, looking back with Blake Bortles and what they had, that offense should have sucked. But Nathaniel Hackett kind of like had them doing at least okay enough. That's kind of how I feel about Tim Kelly, the Texans offense coordinator, and this Texans offense. It should suck, but they're kind of still doing enough. I think in time he'll hopefully he gets a job somewhere because I think he's done a great job with this, with what he's been given.
We were on to the Jaguars here, and before we do, breaking some news, it looks like the Jaguars have already requested to interview Buccaneers offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich for the head coaching gig. He's currently the betting favorite, according to BetOnline, to be the next Jaguars head coach. Obviously has the connection there after playing for the Jaguars. Some people, Trevor Sikkema, Tampa Bay Trey on Twitter, PFF guy, has covered the Buccaneers beat for a little bit. He is not sold on Leftwich as this head coaching candidate that people are propping him up as. And I don't think, obviously the Jaguars connection, I think, is driving a lot of like this outside perception of interest. But like, are you backing Leftwich as a head coach? It's always hard to speak to, right? Because you don't know like actually what he has control of in this offense. You don't know transitioning into a CEO role, this is what it is, right? It's not, play calling obviously is a part of it for some coaches, but so much of it is managing people and hiring the right people and not staying in Columbus and touching other women. Like there's a lot of these factors. Where are you at on Leftwich as a head coaching candidate for the Jags?
And some of those are hard to discern beforehand.
They can be.
Honestly, I can speak to this offense and what it looks like and what it's been and kind of like the Arians system. And I think it would fit Trevor Lawrence's strengths. I think the way it attacks down the football field, the way it, runs a lot of 5-man pass protections and gives him 5 in a route and gives him options. I think that's something that Trevor Lawrence would excel at. Now, as a manager, play caller, whatever, Trevor would probably have a better handle on exactly that. But I do think from a X's and O's standpoint, it's something that would fit his strengths.
So with the Jaguars, let's go back to their day 2 and day 2 draft class. Tyson Campbell has played the most by far. Their second-round pick out of Georgia, 6'2", 185, a bit of a burner from American Heritage. Also played with Patrick Surtain, I believe, in high school. He has graded really, really well. He also hasn't allowed, I think, more.
He's come on really strong play. We highlighted him as the rookie of the week.
He hasn't allowed more than 50 yards in coverage since week 8. He has been pretty damn good. A lot of passes defense in that time. He also has had some picks in that time. Tyson Campbell showing up in what's otherwise been, and he's only 21 years old, still a very young player. He's born in the year 2000, which we're gonna have to start talking about. That's a little bit different for the NFL. We'll see there, but Tyson Campbell playing well.
Yeah, I'd say he's had a more encouraging rookie year than C.J. Henderson has.
Obviously,
did. I mean, like even just on the field, C.J. Henderson the red flags didn't show up until off field. Walker Little has made a start. He's been very meh, not great. 757.5 overall grade for Walker Little. That one's TBD. Obviously, dude hasn't played football in 3 years, so that one wasn't too big of a surprise. Andre Sisco finally getting some playing time. Liked what I saw from him a lot in the preseason. That's why I couldn't believe it took him this long to get some playing time. So excited to see where that goes. That's about it, though, as far as Jaguars picks.
Before we get to the next division, we're going to take on the AFC East and the Buffalo Bills. Shout outs from two sponsors here, X-Chair and DraftKings. Working from home is more important now than ever. Optimize your home office with an X-Chair and many of our accessories to enhance your focus, productivity, energy, and comfort. Once you feel the customized support of X-Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar, there is no going back. It's also all in. The LMX massage and temperature regulation, exclusively designed and made for X-Chair with versatile comfort and extraordinary design. X-Chair fits any space. Go to xchairtailgate.com now. That is the letter X, chair, TAILGATE.com, or call 1-844-4-X-Chair for $100 off your first order. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. xchairtailgate.com. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below. And as for DraftKings, the NFL season is winding down. The playoffs will be here before you know it, though. And as DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, that the offers are getting even more amazing. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game. And if they do, you win $200 in free bets for the playoffs. $200 in free bets. Don't miss out on this action. A sportsbook isn't available in your state yet. You can still be a part of the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports Contest. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $5 on any NFL team and win $200 in free bets if they're victorious. That's promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Bills, AFC East. On to their day 2 selections. Bills, back into the first grab with Gregory Rousseau. And then the second round, Boogie Basham. Then Spencer Brown, who's played a lot. Both those players have played a decent amount. 5th round, Tommy Doyle, tackle out of Miami, Ohio. Marquez Stevenson has had some run. The wide receiver from Houston picked in the 6th. DeMar Hamlin of Pittsburgh. Rashad Wildgoose and Jack Anderson rounding out their late day 3 picks. Have you been impressed with Spencer Brown? Or I don't think anyone has. But how worried, I guess, are you of this start, right? Like Spencer Brown has been
so Spencer Brown was a project, and I think that's like something to definitely keep in mind when evaluating rookie seasons. It's
and like especially day 2 and day 3 seasons.
How NFL ready was this guy supposed to be? We'll get to with the Dolphins. Like Liam Eichenberg was supposed to be NFL ready, more NFL ready than this. So for Liam Eichenberg to struggle out the gate, it's a little scary, as much as he has. For Spencer Brown to have a 51.3 pass blocking grade so far, and they've jostled him between right tackle and left tackle, and like he's a big reason why the Bills, and we keep saying it, are inconsistent offensively because his offensive line is a sieve. He was never supposed to be thrown in. It's like he was never supposed to play this early on. He was a athletic project coming out of Northern Iowa. So just TBD. I'm not like glad he's getting the reps. If you're a Bills fan, it's good to play football, get better at it, usually by playing, but not going to worry too much. Carlos Basham's the one who's a little bit more worrisome. He only has 7 pressures on 97 pass rushing snaps. He took that massive step back as a senior. Like was the guy who's on the older end coming in the NFL. That's the one that he really hasn't done anything coming out here that I'd be a little bit more That's a little bit more meaningful, in my opinion.
I mean, that's another guy, too, that was supposed to be entering the NFL a little bit more pro-ready, right?
Yeah, he's 24.
Yeah, 24 years old, played a ton at Wake, had a lot of production there, good size, 6'5", 285, like filled out that frame. He's only played 183 snaps this season, just a 61.9 grade and 7 total pressures on the year. Brown hoping for a turnaround in 2022 and moving forward. No other, I think, Bills day 2, day 3 player has played more than like 100-ish snaps so far this year. Pats. Christian Barmore, my guy. Steal the draft. Are you ready to call it steal the draft?
Sure. We can call it.
Christian Barmore picked at 38, the Alabama defensive tackle. They also grabbed Ronnie Perkins in the 3rd round. Ramondre Stevenson has had a ton of run in this offense. A lot of people like him, especially in the fantasy community. I think Stevenson and Barmore are the 2 of note that have played a lot and actually have played well.
Yeah. Barmore, I just never understood how he fell to 38, man. I get that DT, maybe not most valuable, but we had him as a better prospect than Javon Kinlaw and Derek Brown coming out. And I get he was inconsistent at Alabama, but I think I don't know. It reminded me a lot of when Chris Jones fell the 2nd round. I was just like, how? Like the guy has that combination where it's just like you can win with power, you can win with quicks, you can win with hands. Like he has the NFL sort of combo that you like to see, and was already very productive at Alabama. So that one was surprising, but he's been fantastic. Like I said, 42 pressures already. Ramondre Stevenson, how confident are you right now that Najee Harris as a 1st rounder is better as a running back than Ramondre Stevenson, who was a 4th rounder?
Jeez.
How confident?
I mean, Najee Harris is objectively a better pass catching back.
That's okay.
And I think that's, you see, like, I think he has more broken tackles on receptions than he does like carries almost. Like he's done really well catching the ball out of the backfield, especially with Big Ben dumping it off to him on 4th downs and stuff. But like Ramondre Stevenson is a runner. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, that's the whole, like the rushing, the standard deviation.
He was more productive on a per touch basis in college.
I'll say this. Najee Harris is better. Let's just go with that because he was drafted higher, whatever, whatever. But like the standard deviation between like the Najee Harris, who say is like the best of this rookie running back class, and like Ramondre Stevenson isn't the same as like drafting one in the 1st round, drafting one in the 5th. Like that's why like it is narrower than those gaps. And I think that's, I think there's been some comments in the YouTube channel about like running backs don't matter and like some of that movement and stuff like that. I hate that expression. I think it's stupid. Like that whole thing has just been overblown. But regardless, like it's more about like the replaceability of running back value and also just like how there's still like this really big gap in thought and like how we evaluate the position and like prioritize spending a lot of money and like second contracts and things, and also high draft capital when, the Zeke to Tony Pollard or the Cook to Alexander Madison, like this gap is not as big as the pay gap is or the investment gap is. But I don't want to fucking hang my hat on that too much.
I also don't want it to be like, I think Najee Harris sucks. I just do think Ramondre Stevenson's very good. I think he's a very good power back. So there you go. There's the Pats class. I think they had a great draft.
I think we gave Barmore a very good grade, Mac Jones an elite grade. And
we didn't give Barmore an elite grade? Who the fuck was grading these things?
You were on the show, bro. You were on the show and just like not willing to actually contribute to the website.
Okay. What? I mean, you see, these seem very easy. Look at the draft board. Look at where he was picked. Do some sort of
I don't want to hear
anything.
your shit right now. All right, Miami Dolphins. Javon Holland, who have you watched like a broadcast of the Dolphins? Like I think every broadcast booth in the NFL loves Javon Holland. Like every time they bring him up, it's like, oh my God, this guy's a gamer. And I like Javon Holland too. We know Maurice Jones-Drew does as well. Yeah, Oakland native, had him like 10th overall or whatever it was. Javon Holland has played a lot. We gave it an above average grade. He was the 50th ranked player on PFF's draft board, drafted at 36.
That was a regret. He was at one. I don't know why I was still low on him. He was awesome.
He was awesome. Yeah. He's also an Oakland native, Bishop O'Dowd grad. Yeah. Then they grabbed Liam Eichenberg, who is the 52nd ranked player on PFF's draft board at 42, and then Hunter Long, the tight end at Boston College, at 81. Talk Holland. How have you seen Holland?
I mean, he's probably top. I don't want to say where I put him in the NFL because it's going to go on a quote graphic, and that's
no, it won't. Just say that. He's good. He's been good this year.
Yeah, he's as good as Antoine Winfield was coming out last year, if not better.
Especially on deep safeties. Like he plays like exclusively deep safety for them and has the range and has had ball production that you don't really see for that position. He's been fucking awesome. 81.1 PFF grade this year.
Yeah, he's been very sweet. Now, Eichenberg, on the other hand, that's kind of like positives end there. Eichenberg has taken his lumps between right tackle and left tackle. It's just been ugly. Not really any signs of life there. And then the one pick that was always like, this pick doesn't make any sense. The Hunter Long pick.
Yeah.
They used a premium sort of 82nd overall for a backup number 2 tight end. And I get like Mike Gesicki going to be hitting free agency or whatever. But I mean, Long's like barely seen the field so far this year. 90 snaps he's on the field, and it's like 82 overall is a nice spot to find an offensive lineman. And I get that it's like maybe a little revisionist history to be like, hey, keep drafting offensive linemen, but they should have kept drafting offensive linemen.
Most passes.
That was all something we said a lot of that last offseason, that they had to get a better O-line.
Most passes defensed at the free safety alignment this year. Combined passes defensed and picks. Darnell Savage with 10. Javon Holland with 8. He has been up there, upper echelon for the Miami Dolphins. Awesome pick for them. Jets. Are there anything positives here? Any positives? Elijah Moore in flashes. Elijah Moore in flashes. Michael Carter ranks third. I think Michael Carter, the running back of UNC, ranks third in forced missed tackles per rush, like right up there with Javonte Williams and other backs as well. Those two guys obviously being highlights for the Jets.
Michael Carter, I also feel like is one of those guys that once you get kind of the rest going around him, once like the situation starts being nicer, when like there's more guys to take the attention off him, he's really going to start to shine more. I don't know. Can't explain exactly how I feel that way, but he's a guy who like needs space. And when he's in space, he's awesome. But when he's in tight quarters, it's kind of not as awesome. He's not that kind of back that's going to grind out, a 4-yard game between the tackles. It's just not him. But like if he went to, I'm really going deep down this rabbit hole. If he went to the Chiefs, he would be sick in that offense. Okay, that's the last thing I'll say about that. But I do think Mike Carter's going to be good. And Elijah Moore is their number one receiver right now. He straight up is. He's their best wide receiver at the moment. So that is exciting from that perspective. They've thrown a lot of shit at the wall defensively. Not a ton has stuck. Brandon Echols had that one nice pick 6, but it's gotten torched kind of routinely. I will say Jason Pinnock, though, the former Pitt corner, I believe, who was kind of like played a lot of cover 2. He played a lot of, it wasn't like a traditional corner. You're not drafting him to just be that. He's moved to safety since, played safety this past week, had a pass breakup. I think that's his future.
Going to the AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs. They had a slam dunk and a half on day 2 and day 3. Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, 2 starting offensive linemen for them. Creed Humphrey is not just the highest graded rookie offensive lineman. He's the highest graded center in the NFL. He's literally the highest graded center in the NFL. They picked him at 63 in the draft, which is late second round. Nick Bolton has also had some positive production for this team. He's playing a lot more snaps of late. But to get Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey on day 2 and day 3 of the draft, 2 guys that are legitimately starting for this team and playing well, Humphrey better than Smith. But man, that has been a huge win for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have like struck gold, right? Like if every day 2 and day 3 selection, or every year you hit on one day 2/day 3 pick, that's a slam dunk. And they've hit on probably 2 or 3 here.
I think 3. I mean, Nick Bolton's he doesn't look like Jeremiah Usu-Cormoa. It obviously doesn't look like Mike Parsons. But if you just compare him to what the Chiefs had been throwing out the linebacker position in recent years, that is a massive upgrade. That guy is a playmaker still in the running game, has been huge for them in that regard, and has made some plays at least in coverage. He's never going to be, Luke Kuechly in coverage. He's not that guy. He's limited wingspan, limited sort of lateral agility, movement skills, but he has straight line speed. He's quick to diagnose stuff, and he doesn't get lost. So I think Nick Bolton is a heck of a linebacker even already. So they have 3 slam dunks. If we're talking about teams that really had their best drafts outside of the first round, Chiefs right up there. Have to be right up there.
I am excited for, so many people are calling for Creed Humphrey to be like offensive rookie of the year. Like the discourse around Humphrey has been overwhelmingly positive. He's not just graded well, but I think a lot of, even beyond just PFF, a lot of media recognizing him as like a top safety.
And then
one of the best
fucking
picks.
Trey Smith, I don't know what goes on. We need to get Pro Football Doc on to see how people's boards work with injury issues and things like Trey Smith's blood clots that dropped him to the 6th round. But if you just look at hit rates of 5th round picks, late 4th round picks, the fact that like you would pass on a guy at that point in time, as talented as Trey Smith was, who by all accounts, I believe was a top 100 consensus board. I believe is in the 70s on PFF's draft board. Just because of like that, seems crazy to me. And he's looked like a guy who should have been a top 75 pick, like straight up. That's where he should have been. So
a lot of that too is right. Like they don't like, okay, we're going to factor that into Trey Smith's ranking and we're going to drop him to the 5th. It's more like he's off our board.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that ruined that. That'll.
And it's like, well, then your board's going to have a lot of shit players. If you're limited 20 or so guys every year. Yeah.
two players that have played the most from the day 2 and day 3 selections for the Chargers have both been, I think, productive, flashy. Asante Samuel Jr., defensive back, drafted in the 2nd round. They also grabbed Josh Palmer in the 3rd round, one of your guys out of Tennessee. Samuel Jr., man, is playing so much like kind of we expected, right? He was another pro-ready guy, instinctive guy, and has, I mean, there's like the Antoine Winfield Jr. comparisons, right? Like he has been legit awesome playing slot corner for them. And Josh Palmer, I think, I don't think
Samuel Jr. doesn't play slot.
What'd you say?
He doesn't play slot.
It's not Samuel Jr., sorry. No. Playing.
Who's played slot? Who are you talking about playing slot? It's not Samuel's not slot.
Oh, okay. I thought he was playing slot, no?
No.
Okay. Well, then I would say, anyway, Josh Palmer has not been as productive as Asante Samuel Jr., but I think exceeding expectations of the 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Palmer's been kind of average. He had that one game with, what was it, a couple weeks ago? Who were they playing? When everyone was out, all the other wide receivers were out. It was against the Giants. 66 yards in that game, a touchdown. Hasn't got a ton of run because he's obviously been 3rd fiddle in that offense with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. So that one's still very much a TBD. But I do think Asante Samuel, you see it. Like he's gotten burned a few times. It's not been as good as the 1st round corners. It doesn't look as good as those guys, but he has been close. He's been better than the 1st round corners were in 2020. Let's just say that. He has been good for the Chargers so far this year. If we're talking about 2nd round corners on a whole, 47th overall pick, he's exceeded expectations for that.
He's only played 4 snaps in the slot. I don't know what crystal meth I was doing, but outside cornerbacks where he's played the most, 518 snaps so far this year for Asante Samuel Jr. Palmer, does he have a long-term role?
He might have to. I mean, with Mike Williams' contract situation maybe gone after this year, I'm not sure he's shown enough for me to be like, Mike Williams, see ya. Well, we're not going to fork up the
You're
money.
Not stoked to move on.
But I do think he might have to step in right away next year. I do want to add one more thing because I was going through these and I just realized, I don't know how I didn't realize this on draft day, but back-to-back years, the Chargers took the one running back that I think I differed the most from basically where they got drafted in consensus. This year, it was Larry Roundtree. And now they only took him 198th overall. But I was just like, this dude, I don't think he can play. I don't think he's an NFL back at all. I don't think he's close. He's averaged 2.4 yards per carry this year. And then last year they took Josh Kelly, who in the 4th round, and I was just like, I don't see it whatsoever. He maybe has some speed, like size and speed, but like the guy cannot break a tackle. Like he goes down first contact so easily. He's averaging 3.2 yards per carry in his career. So the Chargers and I see running back scouting vastly differently.
The Chargers are fading your running back analysis. I think it's fair, though. I mean, you stink. On to the Raiders. Trayvon Merrick was their first pick on day 2. We gave it an elite grade. He was a 16th ranked player on PFF draft board. Our top ranked safety, we grabbed him at 43. He's played a ton this year. I think he's played more snaps than any rookie this year. 1,100 plus snaps, playing a ton of deep safety for them. I think he's up there with Javon Holland and like production from that position. He's also played a little bit more. But Merrick has been, let's start with Merrick and then we can get to Hobbs and some of the other guys as well. But Merrick has been, I think, meeting expectations. I still like, at the safety position, maybe you're looking for more splash plays, but playing the single high and Gus Bradley's scheme, like they play cover 3 more than anyone. They play single high more than anyone. I think it's a tough role to play going from like that quarters heavy TCU system. I think he's been impressive considering all that. Yeah,
Merrick's been great. I think he's a much needed hit in the secondary for them. And and Nate Hobbs has been too. That's one of the steals to draft in the 5th round. There you go. There's your slot guy. He's been very physical. I think he could honestly play outside cornerback. I get that they're not they kind of like, you don't want to waste a good thing. He's already been very good in the slot. Don't want to mess that up too much, especially when the outside corner, like they've had injuries and it's been so up and down. You want to move him back and forth. But I do think in time he has the skill set to do so. So much needed there. Some actual building blocks in that secondary for them. I will say after that, Divine Diablo has played of late, started the past few weeks. He's already better than Jonathan Abram.
100%.
The dude's already better than Jonathan Abram.
He's been awesome. He's been like a great interview for them too.
Yeah. And then the last one, Malcolm Kuntz. I can't believe he was inactive for so long. I get that they have a lot of edge rushers now, but just going back and watching him against KC, he had some like legit wins, which you don't see that a lot for rookie. So he's only played 2 games, only like 20-something snaps, and was, like I said, inactive for I think the first 11 weeks, and just healthy scratch. But I am excited to see what he can do moving forward because those were, like I said, you don't see wins like he had all the time.
Divine Diablo is that safety from Virginia Tech that transitioned to linebacker, 6'3", 226, playing linebacker now for the Las Vegas Raiders. He's been really good of late compared to the linebacker play that they've had, right? They've swung and missed on Corey Littleton. Jonathan Abrams has been moved to linebacker, and Diablo's already having more success. With Hobbs, you did not hold in high regard entering the draft. What did you or didn't you see with Hobbs, do you feel?
Yeah, well, stupid Illinois had him. I mean, Illinois was playing cover 2. They had him as cover 2 corner. And so you're not seeing what he actually looks like a corner. And now cover 2 corner is kind of more similar to a lot of what you're going to be doing because you're an underneath zone defender at that point. When you're in the slot, you're often an underneath zone defender. So he was good in that role, and now he's good in the slot. So it was a high-end athlete. I believe he was one of the best in terms of like overall testing numbers at the cornerback position. So the Mike Mayock day 3 train continues.
Mayock cleaning up. I mean, Max Crosby, former day 3 guy, or day 2, day 3 guy. Broncos, got to start with Javonte Williams. He's been awesome. I think he ranks tied with Jonathan Taylor in forced missed tackles per touch.
Yeah, Broncos, it's kind of wild because, they're hyped up as a good roster all offseason outside the quarterback position. And then they hit, one of the best drafts of anyone in the NFL. Like, they get Patrick Surtain. Oh, my God, you're dying over there. You get Patrick Surtain, Javonte Williams, Quinn Miners with your first 3 picks. All look like slam dunks already. Like, obviously, low-value position after a Surtain with running back and a guard. But Javante's been excellent, leads the NFL in broken tackles. Quinn Miners, after kind of struggling early on, filling in for injuries, now starting the past handful of weeks, has been nothing short of a quality starter since coming back. So he looks like a W. I will say Baron Browning's the one, then your last 3rd-round pick, last guy who's really seen a good deal of playing time. Actually, Jonathan Cooper has as well. Jonathan Cooper, for a 7th-rounder, been probably better than any other 7th-rounder this year. I mean, he actually looks solid in run defense, has had some wins as a pass rusher, still don't know where his ceiling goes, though. But for a 7th-rounder, that's above expectations already. But Baron Brown is the one who still TBD, still figuring it out, had some ugly games when he got thrust into starting lineup. I think he's been improving, not getting lost as much in coverage. So that one is one where that was kind of always who he was going to be. Is that project.
Next on our list.
Yeah.
Packers. I think, the Packers alignment have been hits, right? Like, they've had some guys that can come in and make some play. Huh?
Your cough button's on.
Oh. I'm sorry, I'm dying. I'm literally dying. Had to turn the cough button off. But they picked multiple linemen on day 2, day 3. Josh Myers comes in, 62 overall. They also have Amari Rodgers, who I think all of Packers Nation, I don't think Packers Nation's a thing. They hate him for special teams efforts.
Oh, he's been awful.
He's been horrendous, former Clemson slot receiver. But then they have Royce Newman, also drafted him on the offensive line. Cole Van Landen, I don't think he's played a ton, but Green Bay Packers, day 2, day 3 reactions.
Yeah, Rodgers looks is the most worrisome at this point because, again, it's about expectations. He was billed as, NFL-ready route runner, slot, reliable guy, has been the opposite out of the gate. Can't see the field on a somewhat weak receiving core and can't even catch a punt, save his life. So that one's scary. Josh Myers obviously got hurt. He looked okay, I'll say, early on before he did get hurt. Not like the guy who was picked behind him, Creed Humphrey. But Royce Newman, up and down, good athlete, 56.4 overall grade, though. The guy has lost a lot of he's had a lot of his issues haven't necessarily come one-on-one. Stunts, blitz pickups, he has been kind of a nightmare, honestly. The good thing is now that people want to blitz Aaron Rodgers, so doesn't come into play that often. But when they do, he has had his issues. The last guy probably to highlight, Tadarius Slayton, defense tackle, kind of just space eater. That's what he's been. So that's why they drafted him.
I think the biggest highlight has come, and we talked about this on the first round, when we did the first round version of this. Eric Stokes just like kind of exceeding expectations starting it for them. He has probably been, versus expectations or PFF's expectations, had the most success versus those. I skipped past the Bears. No, Vikings. Wyatt Davis, you hate to see it. Nwangu, though, I think he has tied for the NFL high in kick return touchdowns this year. Always a speedster coming out of Iowa State. One of my kind of favorite day 3 flyer type of backs for sure.
Yes. So they kind of famously, and Mike Zimmer is not a rookie guy. He does not throw a lot of rookies in. Does not like to get them. Does not like starting rookies. And so You have, I think they had 11 picks this past year. Outside of Christian Darrisaw, no one really consistently seeing the field. So I will say that is a little worrisome for Wyatt Davis. That was the guy I thought could come in and maybe sneak playing time because their guard situation's been so bad. But even he hasn't been able to see the field. Cameron Bynum, the guy to highlight though, outside of Nwangwu, who everyone and their mother knows is exciting as hell to watch. Is hashtag fun to watch. Cameron Bynum though, cornerback at Cal, was also kind of a cover 2 cornerback there at California. Switches to safety here for Minnesota. When he filled in for Harris Smith when he was out with COVID, he made some plays. That pick he had against the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, was legit. I think he looks like a natural at safety. He will probably be starting there at some point in his rookie deal. He looked good.
Matthew Collar, who I think is a Vikings beat writer, I went on his podcast. He talked about Wyatt Davis showing up a little overweight. Coming off an injury, came a little overweight. I think him getting into shape was a big thing for Zimmer and the Vikings. So, man, TBD on how he pans out.
It always blows my mind that you get to be, for your job, 315 pounds. You get to be fat. You could probably eat, you get to eat pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
And you still go overboard with that. That's incredible, man. Every time I hear stories about that.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
Like Eddie Lacy. It's like, dude, you could be 240, but you just couldn't be 260,
Yeah.
And you couldn't, and you had, and China food.
I will say something that Collar said that was interesting, the Vikings beat writer on that. He said, he said that I'd never heard anyone say, normally in training camp, you can tell in the first 2 weeks if a rookie's going to pan out, which I feel like, I don't know, but he was saying a lot of especially day 2, day 3 guys, you can feel, see first time seeing their size, speed, demeanor, and just overall comparison to NFL talent. You can kind of get a really good feel of okay, how ready is this guy? And I guess how soon can he make an impact? And he felt Nwangwu was like, oh my God, what the hell? We got a legitimate fire starter in this third round. With Wyatt Davis, he obviously did not have that same feedback. I wonder, being there, right? Being there and seeing how he's used and how he's leveraged and all that stuff early on in camp. I do think you can get a lot of telltale signs of where at least their early career will traject. Chicago Bears. Tevin Jenkins is just now recently getting play, right? Tevin Jenkins did not have, he was their second round pick. They traded up for him in the second round. He's just now getting a few starts. I don't think he's been wildly impressive, but he also hasn't been a complete and utter disaster, which is obviously a huge win. The bigger highlight has been friend of the show, Juice Herbert. Khalil Herbert, I think, is their highest grade offensive player with over 200 snaps played. He has been...
Dude looks awesome.
He has been sick. He's been sick. I think he was your, RB2, RB3?
He was, I think, RB4 on the PFF draft board because you had the trio at the top.
Oh, he was RB5.
Javonte, you had Javonte, Najee, and Travis Etienne. And then I think Cardle was 4, and then he was 5. I really liked him. I couldn't believe that he fell to the 6th. Anyone that I just don't. If you're watching his tape at Virginia Tech was sick, and now they didn't run a ton of concepts, but it was inside zone, outside zone, and his vision on that was good.
Also, really good returner,
and he's 5'9", 212 with 4-ish speed. I didn't see a ton to dislike about him, and he's obviously been very good at the NFL level. So excited about him. Excited about Thomas Graham, what he showed the past 2 weeks. Tevin Jenkins, obviously, that's kind of been a wash of a rookie season. Larry Borum has played a lot more than he has, playing your starting right tackle there for Chicago for the majority of the season, or the second half of this season. And, for a 5th rounder, I think he's been better than expectations. And I'm not sure if he stays at tackle, might end up at guard. I think I project him at guard, but that's at least encouraging for a 5th rounder.
Detroit Lions, Levi Wuzurike and Ali McNeil, the 2 defensive tackles, were their first 2 picks of day 2. Both have graded below 60. I think Levi Wuzurike has graded a little bit worse. They both played a little bit north of 300 defensive snaps this year. Fatu Melifonwu, who's also been thrown into the fire, has played a lot for them at cornerback, the former Syracuse cornerback. He, too, has not graded all that well. I think he's been impressive in bursts. I think a lot of these guys have. Where I think a lot of people's attention has been drawn to is Amon-Ra St. Brown. By far and away, played the most snaps of anyone from their day 2 and day 3 selections. And he's legit turned on of late, even making Tim Boyle look good.
Yeah, I think I still don't think he kind of profiles as your guy going forward, but he's a nice secondary piece. He's been their slot receiver and looks very reliable in that role. So I think that's a nice starting point. And it's also nice that you've gotten so many snaps. They've had far and away the most snaps of their rookie class. You're getting these guys
throwing
reps.
Everyone out there, right?
whether it's Derek Barnes, who's now starting here late in the season, whether it's Jerry Jacobs, the UDFA, who actually looks pretty solid as their slot cornerback.
Just recently got hurt, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So they're getting a lot of guys reps. Not a ton of home run success stories yet outside of probably Penei Sewell, but I think reason to be encouraged if you're a Lions fan.
On to the NFC South. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a good football team and have not played a ton of their day 2 and day 3 selections. However,
surprise.
There is something to pull from some of this, right? I think they're Kyle Trask, the backup, that was their first pick of the second round, the last pick of the second round.
He holds the clipboard really well.
Holds the clipboard phenomenally. Jalen Darden was, I think, their first pick of the 4th round, the receiver out of North Texas, also a friend of the show. They've also had linebackers KJ Britt and Grant Stewart. They took Stewart at the back end of the 7th. I think KJ Britt in the 5th. They've played over 200 snaps, but not a lot of stuff to glean with how little these guys have played.
Yeah, not much.
KJ Britt, I think, is their lowest graded player on defense.
Darden has been a returner. It's been honestly pretty nondescript. There's not a lot to write home about. They were not the good thing if you're a Bucs fan is that they are not playing. You had a roster that was so good that they didn't have to play. So.
Darden might get some more run though with the injuries.
With the
receiver.
We'll see.
We'll see. He's got a chance to show up, maybe fill in this like Scotty Miller type. Atlanta Falcons day 2.
You just said KJ Britt's their lowest grade defensive player. He's played 21 snaps.
Yeah, I know. I saw that and then looked at how many snaps played. That's on me. He's played a lot of special teams though. KJ Britt's a special teams all maven. If he gets one Pro Bowl early in his career, they'll give him a Pro Bowl every year of his career, like Matthew Slater. I think there's a chance there. You got to make a play. Atlanta Falcons, day 2 and day 3 picks. Let's get to those. Let me pull up their day 2 and day 3 picks. Richie Grant, safety out of Florida, was picked at 40. They grabbed Jalen Mayfield, who's graded terribly so far this year, the offensive lineman in Michigan at 68. He was the 144th ranked player on PFF's draft board, picked at 68. First pick, one of the first 3 picks in the 3rd round. They also grabbed Darren Hall and Drew Dalman in the 4th. Taquan Graham, Ade Agunajay in the 5th. Avery Williams and Frank Kennedy.
Butcher the Notre Dame guy's name. This one's been a scary draft class, honestly. Outside of Kyle Pitts great, obviously great. But Richie Grant, another guy, like we said, should have been NFL ready. You can't even not lock down a starting job as the 40th overall pick. Has been kind of ugly when he has been in there. Jalen Mayfield, we called him a project. He's been a project. He has that hilarious tweet of, if you don't want your quarterback to get hit, draft me. And now I think he's like top 5 in terms of quarterback hits allowed. So the irony of that, but it's not a lot of good things to write home about with this Falcons day 2, day 3 pick so far, sadly.
Yeah. I mean, I think Mayfield has allowed some of the most pressures of any guard in the NFL.
I believe he's the lowest graded guard right now.
Do you think it turns around? Obviously, you said he's a project. Can it turn around?
Yeah, so he's 21.
They've invested in a lot of projects along the offensive line, right?
Obviously, shit can turn around, but we were not eyeing him because he wasn't that fucking good at Michigan, honestly. Sadly.
Shall we get to the Saints then?
Yeah.
Saints. Pete Werner. I just met her.
He has 31 combined sacks and hits. That's insanity, actually.
At guard?
Yeah.
That's absurd. Werner, Ohio State linebacker, drafted at 60. Adebo, the Stanford corner, drafted at 76. Ian Book, we don't need to speak to that too much. Ian Book was the 133rd pick, the 265th ranked player on PFF's draft board, as evidenced by last night. Landon Young, tackle at Kentucky, and then K'Wan Baker in the 7th was their day 2 selections. Book has played some. Do you want to start with Book? Or?
Let's start with Pete Werner. I actually really like Pete Werner. I think this guy is going to be the future there once Demario Davis, obviously, I believe he's the oldest linebacker in the NFL. Once he finally hangs them up, I think Werner made the start against Miami yesterday. He's a 90.8 run defense grade so far this year. Very solid, very sound inside linebacker. Not do it all, does it all. Not all of it particularly well, but like no real weaknesses. He's not like a guy, not a lot of liability to his game. So he's your kind of every down guy. So like that pick. Paulson Adebo, I'm not quite as high on, even though he's played the most of any of their rookies. He has been a roller coaster at cornerback this season. 615 yards allowed this year, 104.6 passer rating against. Just kind of not been great.
Also, just not a lot of hands on the football, right? He only has 2 picks and 2 pass defense all year. He's played a ton. He's played 740 snaps this year, pretty much predominantly at outside cornerback. That's a bit of a concern.
And also with the Saints, I think I've spoken to this about how their defense oftentimes, like they will give Lattimore sort of like island coverages with Marshawn Lattimore, where the safety goes to Adebo's side. Mm-hmm. So like should theoretically have an easier role than a lot of cornerbacks around the NFL because of that, and still not great.
Panthers. I think, really liked their draft class. They had a lot of talent. Specifically, after taking J.C. Horn at 8, they grabbed Terrace Marshall Jr. in the 2nd, Brady Christensen in round 3, Tommy Tremble also in round 3, Chuba Hubbard, who's had some run, Deontay Brown in the 6th, Shai Smith in the 6th. There were a lot of reasons to like their day 2 and day 3 draft class. Now, the Carolina Panthers as a whole haven't been all that successful. Where they've seen the most run from this group, Tommy Tremble, I think over 600 snaps played. Keith Taylor has played a lot. Chuba Hubbard, with Christian McCaffrey's injury, has played as well. Yeah,
Terrace Marshall, I'm not going to ding him too much for lacking production because that's literally every Panthers wide receiver at this point. But there's no doubt it's been ugly. 122.49 yards per route so far this season. 122 yards on 249 receiving snaps. So, yeah, they're day 2 and day 3. There's not a ton to write home about. Like Tommy Tremble, exciting player. But again, like this passing off is just so bad that you're not going to get featured. Brady Christensen, they've just jostled him around too much. I think he's played already 4 offensive line positions for the Panthers. It's like no one's going to grade well at the NFL level as a rookie, playing that many different positions. So TBD on that. The only guy who kind of like had some flashes that I was kind of excited about was Davion Nixon, but then he got hurt. I believe it's on the IR with a knee injury. So, and that was only on like 100 snaps early on in the season. So there you have it. Panthers rookie class outside the first round. I mean, even J.C. Horn getting hurt, it's kind of been dud, sadly, for them so far.
Man, we really liked it too. You hate to see it. You hate to see it for the Carolina Panthers. Dallas Cowboys. Osa Odigizua has played a ton for them. And I feel like he's played really well, but he has not graded as well as maybe
He's made plays.
He's made some plays, right? I think he has.
And I think along the defensive line, the capability of making plays is far more important than how consistent, or not consistently, but than the negative plays, in my opinion.
So Osa Odigizua was their 3rd round pick. He was drafted 75th overall. He was a 93rd overall player on PFF draft board, the UCLA defensive tackle. He's played the most snaps of all of their day 2 and day 3 selections at 598. They've also gotten some run out of Quinton Bohanna, another defensive lineman that they had. Let's start with Kelvin Joseph, though. Like, Kelvin Joseph was supposed to be this dude coming out of Kentucky, extreme athlete, drafted 44th overall. He was a 67th ranked player on PFF's draft board. Had an absurd pro day profile. Where have you been with Kelvin Joseph?
Yeah, so he had a hamstring injury in preseason. Started on IR. It came back, I believe, week 7 or 8, midway through the season. Comes back, doesn't really get much run. Finally starts this past week. Played well. Obviously, a lot of guys played well against the football team. And football team, if you're not guarding Terry McLaurin, you can kind of take plays off. They didn't have a lot of talent outside of him. And obviously, your boy is throwing balls to him, Taylor Heineke. But yeah, Kelvin Joseph, 1 of 5 targets, -2 yards. He had a really good game. So that's encouraging. Talent's never been an issue with him. With him, it's going to be consistency. He's going to show up every single week like that. So him and Osa Odigizua, very excited about. A little sad, Jabril Cox only played 9 snaps, but that means your linebackers are playing well. So
their linebackers have been playing well. Are you in on
better than you? At least outside, Lade Van Der Esch, better than what we expected, what we saw last year, but still not exceptional. But
would you put Micah Parsons as Defensive Player of the Year?
Oh,
if you had a vote,
no, I still think Myles Garrett's been the most dominant, but.
He's not even the favorite.
I know.
Brutal. Philadelphia Eagles, they've gotten some run out of their draft class. I think they have, especially their day 2 and day 3 picks, I think they have 6 guys with over 200 snaps played this year. Landon Dickerson, I think, leads that group. Milton Williams, the defensive tackle out of Louisiana Tech, has played a lot. Kenneth Gainwell has had some run. Patrick Johnson has had some run. Dickerson, we have not talked about him a ton. Creed Humphreys kind of stole the show among all rookie interior offensive linemen. Where are you at in Dickerson?
Yeah, so we switched to guard. Out of obviously necessity there for the Eagles. I thought he's been good in the run game. Obviously hasn't graded out exceptionally in pass protection, but I think only a matter of time. I think you just got to stay healthy. You have a the quote unquote 10-year starter. Should he do that? Milton Williams,
he's
the
also
guy
graded well, right? Because Creed Humphrey's kind of changing what we even expect from interior offensive linemen. But a 67.2 PFF grade from Landon Dickerson so far this year. He's played over 700 snaps. That is solid for a younger interior offensive line, especially for a guy who's coming off an injury. So I think I would not be concerned at all. If anything, encouraged from what he's done so far this year.
Yeah, Milton Williams really hasn't done much. That was he was about as big a project as you'll see. Coming out of Louisiana Tech, the 3rd round pick, who they kind of dabbled with. He's a DT, almost like a 5-tech at Louisiana Tech. He's only 278. They've dabbled with him a little on the edge, settled in with him actually as like a pure 3 technique for them, and just not much to write home about. The interesting guy in this draft class, and now Kenneth Gainwell has pretty much been as advertised as like receiving back, but the interesting guy to me is Teron Jackson, because he was uber productive coming out of Coastal Carolina. Had a big NFL frame, 6'2", 260, with like longer arms for a 6'2" guy than you'd expect, and was a bull rush specialist at Coastal Carolina. Had that like unique body type that could get it done at the NFL level, and he's played well. He's made some legit plays for them. I'm excited to see how he develops for 6th rounder. You shouldn't be earning a 7.6 overall grade, which is like slightly above average as a 6th rounder. So I'm excited for him.
Washington football team will, and then the Giants will close out the NFC. Start with the Washington football team. He's battled injuries, but he's been awesome when healthy. Sam Cosmi, we gave this an elite grade when he was picked. He was the 38th ranked player on PFF's draft board, picked at 51. Sam Cosmi has been phenomenal when healthy. I mean, he's always had the tools, right? Always had the athleticism. Yeah. There's some bad tape from him at Texas. You've seen him get worked a bit, especially from some speed guys, and also people wanted him to add power and all these things. But man, he's entered the NFL. Legit run blocker, played super well in pass protection. This is a hit, slam dunk situation.
Yeah. Cosmi looks better than a lot of first round tackles of late. Like, he looks a lot better than like the Austin Jacksons of the world, the Isaiah Wilsons of the world.
Oh, he looks better than Isaiah Wilson.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that. I know it's a hot take, but no, he looks like a guy who, so 75.9 overall grade. Like I said, he got hurt. He had an ankle injury against New Orleans, missed like 6 weeks, but he's been back, playing well. That's a long-term starter for you right there. So I'm excited about that. De'Ami Brown, though.
Dude, concerning. I'm concerned.
Concerned about De'Ami. I really thought he was like a guy who could hit the ground running at the NFL level. 140 yards, though, all year long.
And like their receiving core is not like deep.
Yeah. So that one's tough.
De'Ami Brown, I've been disappointed. St. Juste has had some plays too, the Minnesota cornerback. He's had some run with this team as a day 2, day 3 pick. John Bates, the tight end as well. But really, Sam Cosmi, De'Ami Brown, 2 of their highest drafted players on day 2, day 3. Brown, not so great. Cosmi looking like a little bit of a dunk. Giants, Azeez Ojulari was their first pick of day 2, the Georgia defensive end. He was the 30th ranked player on PFF's draft board, taken at 50. We really liked that pick at the time. Obviously, see value there. He also grabbed Aaron Robinson in the 3rd. That was kind of their other like notable day 2, day 3 pick.
Yeah, Azeez, we've talked about him. We put him on the blackout of the week segment at one point for just, he's been very hot and cold, but I think we also gave him a rookie of the week segment at one point. 36 pressures, but of those, he's had like 4 games where he didn't even have up pressure. And he's had a number of games where he had a bunch of pressures. He had 8 pressures against Carolina. So he's a guy who, you see it in flashes. I think that's kind of who he's going to be. He's going to be that guy who, when he beats up on tackles, he's going to do it quickly and in waves. But he's a guy who can get shut down by more athletic tackles because he's just 6'3", 240 is a tough ask at the NFL level too. He only has you don't have a lot of ways to win when you're that size, and not, Von Miller as an athlete. So
what about Quincy Roche? I didn't mention him in the notables, but like he's also a day 2, day 3 player that they had, the former Miami, Florida edge.
Yeah, so he got drafted right by the Steelers, and then they cut him.
That's right. He
came over. He's been kind of whatever. There's similar mold to Azeez Ojulari in that he's not the biggest dude. He's 6'3", 245. He's got to win with his hands, and I'm not sure as a 6th rounder. I'm not sure like there's too much more to give. Like, he has a 61.3 overall grade. I'm not sure there's like this next step in him because he just wasn't that as an athlete.
Rams, NFC West, Tutu Atwell. Are we pouring one out for Tutu Atwell?
We're not going to pour one out, but it is kind of wild to me that so he's the 2nd round pick for them. Ben Skoranek, who the Notre Dame receiver who transferred from Northwestern, who I, as the noted Notre Dame homer, gave a UDFA grade to, wasn't even on the top 250 draft board, is somehow playing far more snaps. Like, Tutu Atwell hasn't played this year. Is playing more snaps than Tutu Atwell in that offense. That one was just a wild pick to begin with. So that one's scary if you're a Rams fan that he can't see the field. Ernest Jones, though, if there's any sort of shining light in this draft class. It is third-round linebacker Ernest Jones from South Carolina. I've been very impressed with him. Obviously not easy to come in the NFL and play linebacker, and he's made some plays. They traded away Kenny Young so this guy could see the football field because he's been that good. So I'm excited about him. I think he's the one to write home about in this draft class.
I mean, they brought in Tutu Atwell, and I think we heard that they want him to be like this next Deshaun Jackson. They had Deshaun Jackson at the time, and they moved on from Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
Tutu Atwell still didn't enter that role. Obviously, they added Odell Beckham Jr. To fill out that depth chart, but the fact that he can't see the field over Ben Skoranek is concerning. Concerning to say the least. I mean, concerning.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a bad situation for Tutu Atwell. That pick is looking like it's going to blow up in their face here pretty soon. Arizona Cardinals. Rondale Moore has had flashes, but there's still no consistency from his production. And I think
it's been all screens. He's a gadget player.
I mean, this entire offense is almost all screens, but still, with Rondale,
the offense is not almost all screens. They throw screens to him. He's been good for that. The worrisome thing is that, I kind of said this when he got drafted. It's are they going to find a role for him in this offense that we keep saying has these well-defined roles? And so far, it's kind of been they haven't found one. He hasn't been seeing the field enough to really make an impact. The guy who's interesting in this draft class, who's always been interesting, is Marco Wilson. The Florida cornerback, 4th-round pick, has been their starter all year at cornerback. Been a bit of a roller coaster, 52.1 overall grade, but I think he's played, I don't want to say he's played better than that, but he's had flashes where it's this guy, he has reps where he can shut down elite wide receivers. He has that physically in him. It's just literally always been about consistency with Marco Wilson. This guy started over C.J. Henderson as a true freshman. They were in the same recruiting class. He started over him and was a 3-year starter, 4-year starter. It was a 4-year starter at Florida before coming out, but got benched multiple times throughout his Florida career, had the stupid play where he threw the shoe. The guy's just been inconsistent and a roller coaster. So the talent's there and it has some impressive games, but can he be consistent? Remains to be seen.
Do you ever, say Rondale Moore wasn't drafted by the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Would you want to see him in not this gadgety trash role? I mean, not trash, but I think he could do more, right? I don't think he needs to be limited like this. I think he can do more.
Rondale Moore.
You're a piece of shit. I want to see him running just like a traditional route tree.
Yes.
I think he could crush it. I don't think he needs to be just a screen jet motion guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back to his freshman season, he had a lot of stuff near the line of scrimmage, but he was also winning down the field, and he ran legitimate routes at Purdue.
I talked about how I would love to see him in that, how Deebo Samuel's getting in the backfield, getting handoffs. Rondale Moore could do that.
Yeah.
I get that he's 180 pounds, but that guy's electric and runs with power. I would like to see him literally do that. Give him handoffs, put him in the backfield. I don't know. I just think there's more meat on the bone with him. And I get that he's a rookie, and I think I said you don't want scheming for a rookie, and the 2nd-round pick is not something you see often. But I think at some point it's going to have to be done to take advantage of him, or else you're kind of got an obvious screen guy you're kind of wasting his talents if not.
319 snaps played in the slot for Rondale, by far the most of any position or any alignment. 37 in the backfield, 73 out wide. With Deebo, he plays so much more out wide, right? 481 snaps at outside receiver, 185 in the slot, and then 55 out of the backfield. I think he can win at outside receiver. I think putting him out there and trying to target him more downfield, I think is how you maximize his talents. Seahawks. We talked about Tutu Atwell. This is another team that went after a 2nd-round receiver in Dwayne Estridge, and he has not panned out to what they wanted to be. An older prospect out of Western Michigan, could fly. Everyone talked about how fast he was, but man, has not been able to produce for the Seahawks team.
This one, we said it about Tutu, said about Estridge coming out. These were limited. These were the gadget guys. These were the guys who were not complete NFL wide receivers that in the 2nd round, if you're drafting such a limited role, and they're not comparable to Rondale Moore, because Rondale we thought could do more than that. These guys had to be just that, and I think you're seeing it with Estridge. He has 57 yards on the year. Not been great.
Trey Brown, though, not Trey Norwood. Trey Brown, who's played over 250 snaps for this team this year.
Yeah, he made some starts for them before, I believe, getting hurt, and looked good in them. I was impressed. 8 of 17 targets are only 75 yards across 255 snaps. The guy was playing some ball. So I think that if you're getting excited about any Seahawks pick, it's that one. They have had UDFA Jack Curran taking snaps now at left tackle, playing 34.2 pass blocking grade, though, looking like, well, UDFA, sadly.
Couple more teams here on this list. The infamous, that was it.
Just one more team, the 49ers.
49ers. They've had a lot of guys on this like day 2, day 3 list that have actually like played snaps for them. I think there was some excitement.
Not like the early ones they drafted.
Yeah.
They have 2 of the scariest ones on this list of guys who should be playing more. And Aaron Banks, their second rounder at guard, and Trey Sermon, the running back, who literally got lapped by fucking seemingly like dudes off the street at running back. I don't know why he couldn't see.
Dude, he's in that doghouse right now.
Doghouse, yeah.
The Shanahan doghouse is not what you want to be in, but he's been in it.
But Aaron Banks looked awful in the preseason. And another guy who, coming out of Notre Dame, he was not a top 100 player on the Notre Dame.
On the Notre Dame board.
On the Notre Dame Homers draft board here. 48th overall. We were scared about him. Being able to see the field. He just was a not so fleet of foot, even for a guard. And he's played 5 snaps this year. And they've had issues along their offensive line that he could have seen the field if he was, playing any sort of good football. 48th overall. You expect that guy at the guard position to be able to step in right away. So that one's concerning. The Trey Sermon pick's concerning. Elijah Mitchell, though, looks sweet at running back. Like if you flip the Elijah Mitchell and the Trey Sermon pick, it looks a lot better because Elijah Mitchell looks like a legitimate kind of home run hitter at that position.
Bust watch,
teams.
watch, whiff watch, and first round lock. That is 32 teams. That was a grind, but I like that. I was having a good time. We should go back and look at every draft class, 2021, 2020, and just do this inch by inch, row by row as we go forward. Before we
1996.
Before we get into the watch, whiff, bust, and first round lock, last sponsor, Western and Southern. Want a chance to win the ultimate game day feast, whether it's football success or financial savvy? Winning starts with us asking questions. Would you like to know what it's like behind the scenes with Al on Sunday Night Football? How about a need to know for your financial future? Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to share insights that can help put you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. Every submission earns you a chance to win the ultimate feast to celebrate football's favorite Sunday. We'll cover your catering up to $2,500. Coordinate your order from a restaurant near you and have it delivered on February 13th, 2022. And don't forget to check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast and Western Southern's Instagram for the answers to the best questions each week. Submit your questions at westernsouthern.com/askchris. One more time, that is westernsouthern.com/askchris. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below. Remember, with Western Southern, you can rest assured on game day. Washed watch, bust watch, other bust watch. Let's start with bust watch. This is too early, Mike.
Nope.
This is too early.
It's not
this is too early.
Here we go. Say it.
Kyle Pitts?
Kyle Pitts. Yep. So Kyle Pitts has 949 yards on the season. He is going to go over 1,000 yards as a rookie. Care to guess how many times Antonio Gates, likely first ballot Hall of Famer, has gone for over 1,000 yards in his career?
2.
Twice. Antonio Gates has done it twice.
He's about to do it his first year, but it's a 17-game season.
About to do it his first year. Well, I mean, you might do it next week.
Yeah, it's
16
true.
games.
It's true.
You only need 51 yards to do so. Now, I think it also brings up a conversation of how I want to do this because I think it'll, like I said, bring up a conversation of how tight ends will be treated by the Hall of Fame going forward, because it's not the same era. Like Kyle Pitts is not doing what Antonio Gates did. Antonio Gates' production was unprecedented for what the tight end role was back then, but I think the tight end role has materially changed to where I think in the future, tight ends should have to put up like wide receiver numbers to be accounted for in the Hall of Fame. Like I'm not putting through 3 years now, TJ Hawkinson's numbers are looking like Antonio Gates' numbers from a yardage perspective. I'm not putting fucking TJ Hawkinson in the Hall of Fame because of that. I think we're going to have to look at these yardage totals, and now 949 for even a rookie wide receiver would be dope. And saying these, like, Kyle Pitts better put up wide receiver numbers, or guys, tight ends coming out now better be putting up 1,200, 1,300 yards a year if they want to be considered a Hall of Famer, not just 808 tutties.
I will say how he's winning, and I think you kind of hinted that, right? Like how he's winning is probably what more people need to pay attention to, right? Like he's like this fucking dynamic weapon already at 21 years old. Like he's not just a rookie, right? Like he is young as hell, 6'6", 240. Like everyone, he entered the league with high expectations. Everyone thought he was like the best rookie tight end prospect I think anyone's ever seen. And he has delivered in and out. And like he's been the offense. Calvin Ridley has not played. Julio Jones is no longer there. He has been like the guy to go to. I mean, 102 yards against Detroit, 77 against San Francisco, multiple games over 100 yards this season. Kyle Pitts has been phenomenal. It's just crazy to put people on the Hall of Fame watch as rookies.
Mike
I'm not ready for it.
Mike Parsons, Kyle Pitts. Those are the only two I've done so far.
I also love how they're using him. A ton in the slot, over 223 snaps played in the slot. He's also have over 150 snaps played out wide. Like they are using him as they should be using him, right? Only 100 snaps played at inline tight end. I think Kyle Pitts, man, they need some more help offensively before like he's playing in a playoff game anytime soon. But he has been phenomenal. I'm going to pump the brakes on the Hall of Fame watch, but I am excited about Kyle Pitts. Other bust watch.
Okay, on the other bus watch. I think I've done this one already.
I'm excited. I like this one.
I did running backs before. This one's just the other tight ends that got drafted. The first tight end, you want to hear the first tight end off the board the last 4 years. So guys who are on their rookie deals.
Can't wait.
Cole Kmet.
Yikes.
TJ Hawkinson, who we just mentioned, who
he's been good.
He's been whatever. 61 catches, 583 yards, 4 touchdowns this season. If that's a wide receiver, though, that's the thing. It's like if you drafted a wide receiver in the top 10 and that's what he put up, you would be like, that's horseshit.
Yeah.
You know, like that's awful. So I think that's how we have to judge tight ends going forward.
I think there needs to be better conversation. I think we can drive a lot of this too about like tight end value as blockers, right? Because like people are like, well, he's a blocker too. Like he does a lot. Like receivers block too, and that is a part of it as well.
It's becoming more. Yeah.
As people stretch the field and stuff. So
Hayden Hurst was the first one year prior to that, and OJ Howard. And then the other first round tight ends over that span were Noah Fant, Evan Ingram, David Njoku. That's not a good track record.
No. We haven't had a lot of Noah Fant discourse on this podcast. I think we were like originally Noah Fant haters, right? Talked a lot about his ball skills, approached the ball poorly. He only has one drop this year, has not graded terribly so far this season. 562 yards, 61 receptions. I don't think he's the player that people thought he was coming out of Iowa, right? Like he ran that fast time, like a really low 40 at 6'4", 250. Not the 20th overall player good. I mean, he's in that Hawkinson tier probably, right? I think that's where he probably put him.
Been fine. Again, 562 yards. If you are a wide receiver, which is how I think you have to start treating tight ends, because you can put a wide receiver out in the field instead of one and still have a lot of the same, do some same stuff in the running game. You still use them as blockers, like bigger wide receivers nowadays. So, yeah, there's not a lot of good track record to say, hey, draft a tight end early on. And like I said, all draft season with Kyle Pitts, if you're going to draft tight end in the first round, if you're going to make myself, I'm going to draft tight end in the first round, I better be willing to say I would draft them in the first round if they were literally just a wide receiver. You better, to draft a guy that highly, you better be able to say that.
I think that's fair.
So that is.
Because, I mean, has there been any tight end that like factor in like middling receiving value that like comes in as a blocker and just like just like this monster, this guy. I mean, maybe
and like as soon as like if you are that good as a blocker, you would be more valuable at offensive tackle. You know, I feel like as soon
I also
as
feel like
if
you are like that dynamic. I mean, look at George Kittle, right? Like he's probably like the best blocking tight end in the NFL, but like that same explosiveness, that same explosiveness like shows up in the receiving game. So
he had like an 11-foot broad jump. Kittle was an elite athlete. The fact that he fell to the fifth was always insane.
It was because he only had like 20 receptions, right? Like he just did not have any production in that offense, regardless. Washed watch. This one's rude. He's been washed for a while. You don't got to pour salt in the wound on this guy.
All right. I mean, who do you got a better one for me? I had Josh Norman.
A better one, but like Josh Norman is washed, but he's been washed. Dude, when was the last time Josh Norman was good?
He's like particularly washed. He has a 49.6 coverage grade.
Dude, he runs probably like a 4.8 right now. He ran a 4.66 coming out, and he's 34 years old. He's a Chanticleer, which you love to see. In his best season, 89.9 coverage grade, it was 2015, dude. That's like 6-7 years ago.
All right, maybe
he's been washed for a while, and you just want to like dog Josh Norman. That's fine. I think Norman would be great in the booth. I think get Norman on the pod. I'm going to tell David Sofaro, our public relations guy, I would love to get Norman on the pod. He's got some stories, man.
It's just prescient with him giving up a touchdown this week. All right, and the last one, Whiff watch. It's Baker Mayfield. We had him as number 1 overall.
You're ready to call it?
That season. I think it's safe to say we whiffed. I cannot believe the fall from grace that he has had after that rookie season, because he was legitimately like he was a different quarterback his rookie year. Just the way he played, it's so weird to go back and watch those games and just like see him, how he operated and like how he attacked on the football field and just the confidence. And now like he doesn't know what the fuck he's looking at, man. The last game against the Packers was brutal to watch. It's not been the lone brutal game to watch. He's been
just can bad. I read our quarterback rankings from that draft class?
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall player. Darnold was the number 2 overall player. Josh Rosen was number 6 overall player, the number 3 quarterback. Then we had Lamar Jackson, 19th overall player.
That's a dub.
Mason Rudolph at 25. Then Josh Allen.
This is before I had draft board control, by the way. I'm just gonna
the Rudolph over Allen is fucked.
Yeah. Actually, QBs were not mine that year. I was 28.
What were you? I want to look at the position ranking.
Probably D-line.
D-line?
D-line, O-line.
Let's see D-line. Let's see what you did.
Because that was Harold Landry, right? Yeah. I loved Harold Landry.
So you have Maurice Hurst as the number 3 overall player.
Yeah.
Which had not panned out. Harold Landry, the number 12 overall player.
He's been good.
Maybe not that good. Bradley Chubb, 13. Solid. Vita Vea, 20. Solid. Marcus Davenport, 28. Love. Taven Bryan, choke. Deron Payne. So Jonathan Allen fist away from being out of the league. And then from there, it's like obviously like you got some guys like that have not like panned out, but they're top 50 players. But I mean, that's not as bad as I thought. You're a big Joe Osman guy too. I think everyone was. People love Joe Osman.
He was so good till he was going to be good this year until he got hurt.
Fire up Chips.
All right, first round lock.
Oh, we're going to first round lock, and then we got interviews with Barton Emerson and our guy George Karlaftis.
All right, 18 guys already, adding a 19th, and it's going to be Clemson cornerback Andrew Booth.
Really?
It's going to be Clemson cornerback Andrew Booth.
Wow.
He's ended the season on a high note, 2 picks, 3 pass breakups in his last 2 games. He's got the NFL body type, love his feet. Even if he got beat a few times this year, I think he's going to be a first rounder pretty comfortably. There you go. I'm up to 19.
Dude, 19 first round locks. I hope you hit on all of them. I really do. It's going to be a fun draft. Yeah. Let's get to these interviews. Martin Emerson, Mississippi State, and then George Karlaftis of Purdue. Now joining the Tailgate Podcast is current Mississippi State cornerback Martin Emerson. Mark, great to have you on the show. Had some recording troubles to start, but where we were talking before this recording had to restart, you're back home for the holidays. Talk to me about the food. Talk to me about the experience. How excited are you back to be with the family?
Very excited to be with the family. The best times, the holidays. Christmas is my favorite holiday, so just seeing everybody smile, looking forward to it. Opening presents, seeing my little cousin run around,
That's awesome, man. Very cool. Turning back the clocks a little bit, I want to talk about your recruiting process. You were a former 3-star recruit from Pine Forest. I see you repping Pine Forest now. Had some offers to stay in state, right? Miami was offering FIU, but you ultimately make the decision to go to Mississippi State. What all went into that recruiting process, and also kind of ultimately what got you to the decision to go to Mississippi State?
Okay. Well, actually, a lot of people don't know my 10th grade year. At the end of my 10th grade year, Mississippi State was my first offer. So I built a relationship with Terrell Buckley. I built a relationship with Terrell Buckley for like the past 2 years, and it was just like genuine. It was a lot of love, and like they respected me. Like I feel like I was a priority, and they was a priority too. So then plus just playing the SEC West, growing up as a kid, I was always a dream of mine playing, because they say the SEC West is probably the closest thing to the NFL. So that was just like always a dream. In Mississippi, Starkville, I love the city, but it doesn't offer that much fun. Like it's like not too many distractions. So I kind of wanted sacrifice sacrifice a little, just get out of my comfort zone so I can just lock in and just, play ball.
I think I think that's smart, right? Like going somewhere, you saw Joe Burrow recently. I'm not sure if you saw, but Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Bengals, like Cincinnati's great. There's not a lot to do. I'm able to focus on football. I'm sure Mississippi kind of similar. And then you've been, you go to Mississippi State, you get opportunities to appear in all 13 games as a true freshman. And then even in a COVID impacted 2020 campaign, you play over 700 snaps then. And then this past year, over 600 snaps played. You've really had an opportunity to play a ton of football all 3 of your years there at Mississippi State before obviously now making the decision to go to the draft. I'd love to hear more about how you feel your game has developed over those 3 years, right? You had a really good year in 2020 and then another really good year in 2021. Where would you say your game has improved the most? And what do you feel are some of the biggest driving factors in that?
I would say just knowing football, down and distance, just like just feeling the game. Sometimes, like my freshman year, I would just play it off, athletic ability. I didn't really know what was going on so much. I really didn't even know the playbook all the way, honestly. Like my coach had like certain signals like that I would understand. So that was just like for me and our other freshman cornerback. So yeah, but just like learning defense, learning like tendencies of the team, because football is simple. Like any level, I feel like it's still simple, still football. So just thinking the game out, not thinking too much, but just thinking the game and just playing what I see, being confident. I feel like I grew in that aspect a lot.
I'm sure your film habits have changed a ton since getting to Mississippi State, right? Freshman year, you're getting calls from the sideline, but as you've progressed, you've started to, add different routines to how you watch film. Speak to what it looks like when you turn on the film. What tendencies do you look for? What do you turn on when you're looking at opposing receivers and stuff like that?
The favorite route, their favorite route. Down distance, it's like a lot of plays that certain teams run, like down distance, okay. And I like how this. I look at how they play when they're not getting the ball, how they play like when they are getting the ball. Just a lot of tendencies, it's just like a lot of little things like you pick up on. Also, obviously the coach, he point out those tendencies too, so that help out a lot too. But yeah, I just try to like break down every aspect of the game, the best part to the worst, and then just study that.
And you mentioned, playing in the SEC West is the closest thing like playing into the NFL. You've had 3 years now to go against some of the top receivers in the SEC. Are there some names that come to mind when you think about some of the best challenges you've had in the SEC, or maybe some of the matchups that you've learned the most from?
Best challenges.
I mean, you played that 2019 LSU team, that 2020 family. You played some really talented receivers.
Yeah, I lined up against Justin Jefferson, Chase a couple of that years. I mean, that was my first start actually, 2019. So yeah, I lined up against those guys. It was cool, but like the matchup, if I could say just one receiver that was just locked in, I would say 2020 Georgia Pickens game. When we went to Georgia. Like that game was like top tier. That's probably like my favorite game, like in college. Like it was great. Like they targeted me a lot. A lot of teams they really don't target me that much. Target me a lot. They were trying to get the ball probably every play. So like I was just locked in. It was like a fun game.
That is an insane game, a game I wanted to bring up. You had nine targets, 5 receptions allowed for 21 yards, and 4 passes defense, according to PFF. That is quite the game against Georgia, too. That is one. That's probably the
solo tackles.
that 11 solo tackles. Yeah, true. I mean, that's the tape. When you talk about this pre-draft process, right? Coaches are going to be turning on that tape first and foremost. Going to be one of your impressive tapes in that in this pre-draft process. I want to speak more to the pre-draft process maybe a little bit later, but to start, let's stay at Mississippi State and talk about the relationship you have with Mike Leach, right? Leach is a polarizing guy. I've had other players that have played with him before or played for him before and had told me stories they can't even get recorded, right? He does some crazy shit, man. That guy's a wild dude. Speak to the relationship you have with him and I guess how you feel he's changing the culture for the better at Mississippi State.
I'm very glad, Leach is the head coach. He most definitely changed the culture, I wish he run the ball just a little bit more, but but I love Coach Leach, man. He just, he's a blunt guy, and he not gonna change for anybody. So, he come to work and then he come to work every day. I like his vibe. He kind of like more of an offensive coach, so we don't get to like interact with him so much, but I like him. He's a good guy, great coach.
That's great. I heard great coach on and off the field, which is awesome. Now entering this pre-draft process, how has the early part of this gone, right? Like I know speaking to a lot of players over the past few years, this is freaking hectic, man. You got interview after interview, you're training for the combine, pro day, all these different things. How has this process, at least the start of it, gone for you? And I guess how excited are you to get into the heat of this process when really things start to ramp up?
Yeah, man, I'm excited, man. I'm so anxious. Like I'm just ready to get to work, and just show everybody what I'm capable of. But it has been hectic. It's a lot going on, but it just just staying afloat, just keep your head on straight. It's fun though. I'm ready for it. Everything new, so I'm just taking it, day by day, really.
Are there any like former Mississippi State players that have like gone on to the NFL that you still have good relationships with that you've talked to them about this process with, like any like mentors or things like that? I know dancers are part of that process, but I guess anyone like that you still talk to and have talked through this process so far.
Yeah, Dessler. Yeah, that's my guy, man. That's like really like my brother. So I talk to him a lot. Cam Dessler. Sometimes Slay he reached out. Darius Slay, but he's way older than me. So
Yeah.
but like Cam, that's my guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cameron Dantzler had a wild pre-draft process, right? He enters this COVID-impacted situation where there isn't a combine. He's got to go pro day.
Willie Gaye also. Yeah, Willie Gaye.
True.
I can't, but he don't play the same position as me. But
yeah,
me and Gaye, I like talking to him.
I'll say this. Willie Gaye might be one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. I sat down with him at the combine when he was coming out, and so genuine, such a nice dude. And that was right in that time where everyone was like, oh, he got suspended and he wasn't playing a lot. And he had, he got in a fight with someone or whatever. And like a lot of people were doubting Willie Gaye, but dude, blew up the combine. Now is starting for the Kansas City Chiefs. That guy has had a hell of a turnaround from pre-draft expectations, right? A lot of people tagged him as this like bad off-field dude when actually he's obviously a stud.
Not at all. He had this, he had his things going on, but he wasn't a bad guy at all. So,
Yeah. I think the truth came out with him for sure. I think he's been phenomenal so far. Have you set any goals or kind of like expectations for yourself for this process, right? Like some guys go into this like looking to add weight, looking to add speed, do specific things, or like you thinking about that at all, or are you kind of still early and haven't really thought that through yet?
Yeah, it's kind of still early, but of course, like, skill position, I just want to run as fast as possible. That's like my goal, just run as fast as possible. So, because, a lot of people, they want to see how fast I run. I play defense, I'm a cornerback. So, yeah, just run as fast as possible.
Where are you planning to train, or who are you planning to train with? I know some guys go down to Dallas for Exos and different things like that. What's your plans there?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Phoenix, Arizona for Exos. So, yeah, I'm training there.
I can't speak high enough on Exos, man. The amount of players I've talked to that have either gone to Phoenix or Dallas and have had success with Exos is like tens, if not like hundreds of players that go down there. So I'm sure you should be looking forward to that opportunity. It'd be a fun one for sure. More into kind of what you're bringing to the NFL and I guess your expectations for yourself for the NFL. Speak to the type of cornerback that you are. You turn on the tape, there's some polish to your game. There's some instincts to your game that you've seen develop over the past few years. But what do you feel like is unique to your game that kind of separates you from maybe other cornerbacks in this class?
Just my size, my physicality. I'm real physical, at the point of attack. I can press man, I can play off, just versatile, I can play zone or I can man up, my side of the field. I just feel like, I can do everything, I'm not just like, you just can't label me as a certain type of corner because I can do it all, I just try to be versatile as possible and be ready for any situation that, opposing offense may put me in or my coach may need me to be for that game. So I just try to be versatile.
Yeah. I think the size is what's going to really stand out for a lot of people. 6'2", 200. Is that what you played at this past year around that 200 range, or did you go over or under?
Yeah, I was like at 198 to 202. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, that is some exciting stuff. I really appreciate you jumping on the show, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now joining the Tailgate Podcast is current Purdue defensive end, one of the top edge defenders in the country, top edge defenders in this upcoming draft, George Karlaftis. George, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Dude, you are West Lafayette, born and raised, and go to Purdue, become one of the legends at Purdue, one of the most productive players they have ever seen. I am sure you are so stoked to enter this pre-draft process, having had the effect that you did on Purdue, right? Purdue is a program that is changing its culture, changing how it approaches games. I think you were a big part of that. I guess looking back a little bit, I know it's early, but looking back a little bit on just the effect that you had on Purdue and how excited you are for the future there. I'd love to hear just what you feel Purdue's outlook is, having been there now.
Yeah, Purdue went through a rough patch in the early 2010s and for a whole decade there, So I think, being a Purdue fan my whole life and, being from here and all that kind of stuff, the mission for me at least, and I know for that entire 2019 class with guys like David Bell and Milton Wright, Cam Allen, Jalen Graham, I'd go down the line. The mission was to kind of change the narrative on Purdue football and make it, a staple and a very, very consistent program in the Big Ten, the Big Ten West. I think that's starting. I think that process is beginning now, and I think we have a really bright future as a program.
Absolutely. I think you obviously were a big part of that. But to turn back the clocks a little bit before we get into this season and kind of the pre-draft process ahead, you were an insane high school athlete, right? I think you're on the Greek national water polo team at 13 years old, two-time
That's right.
Indiana state champion in shot put, and then also played for the basketball team. What all sports did you play as a kid? And I guess when did you start really honing in on football as kind of this go-to sport for you?
Shoot, I mean, growing up, I did just about everything. I was actually born and raised in Greece up until I was 13 years old.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
my dad was from here. My dad was from there. My mom was from West Lafayette. So I'd spend 3-4 months out of the year here, and I'd go to school in Greece. So I had a little bit of a different upbringing than most people. So over there, I did track and field. Grew up doing track and field. That was my first love. I did windsurfing. I tried tennis, volleyball, swimming. Water polo was what I loved to do there. And after my father passed away, I also played soccer. But after my father passed away, we moved back here, and I was obsessed with watching Shaquille O'Neal basketball highlights. I thought that guy was cool. Kind of wanted to be like him. So I started out with basketball, and it's like, all right, I'm 6'4", and I'm probably not going to get much taller. So I saw a lot of my friends playing football, and why don't I give it a try for the social aspect? Might be something I'm good at. I'm big, I'm athletic. Why not? Well, I try it. A couple years later, pans out pretty well for me, and slowly but surely started falling absolutely in love with this game.
That is phenomenal, man. I think everyone on the planet that has watched Shaquille O'Neal play is obsessed with watching Shaquille O'Neal highlights. He is
no doubt.
He is an insane basketball player. Obviously, was in his prime. I'm glad you stuck to football, though, man. You are obviously a phenomenal football player. I didn't realize. I knew you were. The West Lafayette stuff. I knew that was like your hometown, something you call it. I didn't realize that you were also born in Greece and spent a bulk majority there. That had to have been a phenomenal experience as a kid to get both.
No doubt.
Makes
no
sense.
doubt.
Sure.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sure the food at the Karlaftis household has to be incredible. I need to hear more about what you guys are cooking up for Christmas.
Yeah, and I like to do a lot of the cooking myself. Just about everything. Now that I've been in Indiana for a good part of my life, and hunting's big out here, so there's venison on the grill a lot over here, and meat and potatoes a lot of the time. But try to still have that athlete's diet a lot of the time. So there's a lot of good things cooking over here.
Gotcha. I thought we'd be getting some baklavas and formas here and stuff like that, but I guess it's just meat and potatoes at Carlos' house.
Well, there's that too. Don't get me wrong. Had some last night, actually, not gonna lie. But there's a lot. I have a pretty diverse background with kind of being both. I have dual citizenship, so I'm technically Greek American. And that's kind of been like my life story. Really, it's like pretty well versed in just about everything. I'm naturally bilingual, so I'm fluent in both languages. I learned them both growing up. I played a bunch of sports growing up, which I attribute, a lot of the different movements I can have and different, ways I can move and apply power and all that kind of stuff. And, just about everything, it's about that diversity and being able to do multiple things.
Yeah, I mean that range, right? As a kid to have that, that much experience with different sports and different cultures and all that stuff has to have such a positive effect on what you're able to do on the football field and your athleticism. Let's speak a little bit to that. I would love to hear you talk more about kind of your preparation, right? There's reports out from The Athletic that, you went at 272 pounds, you dropped from 25% to 15% body weight at Purdue over the course of your career, power clean 380, 505 pound front squat, 10-1 broad, 37-inch vertical. And you're going to test in the 4.6s in the 40-yard dash. Some of these numbers at 6'4", 270 pounds are absolutely absurd. Yeah. I need to hear more about where you're testing now, how this, what are you at 15% body weight still? How much is the baklava set in on that? And I guess speak to just the how excited you are to enter this, this preparation for all this athletic testing. I'm sure looking ahead to things like the combine, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the time I attribute, the the testing and the athleticism, you got to attribute a lot of it to the genetics and how God made you, because, without that, you can't go super far, but, it's a lot of it's hard work. And, something that I don't talk about too much is water polo. I think a lot of my explosiveness and athletic ability comes from my lower half. I have really strong legs, and I think that came from treading water for 2 hours a day for 4 or 5 years of my life. So that's what it's been about. Now, those numbers all you read were preseason. So you go into the season, you gain a little bit of weight. I think I got out at maybe like 278 out of the season, so a little bit heavier. You add some weight. It's a long season and all that kind of stuff. You're not training constantly, and you need those extra pounds. But I haven't tested so far. I'm down in Dallas at the Exos down there, and it's been great. But haven't tested anything so far. I know my body fat right now, I think I'm at 268-ish right now. My body fat's right at 14. So that's been pretty good, but really excited to get into this journey. I know I'm gonna work my tail off and, hope for the best come combine and the pro day.
Exos, I mean, I've done some of this pre-draft stuff for a while now. That is one of the top, programs in the country, right? For this process. So I'm sure those guys will be put you in a really good position to succeed when it comes to testing time. So excited that you're already down there and making moves. Other part of this article that I love, and Bruce Feldman of The Athletic puts together this Freaks List article every year. We've had him on the podcast. Love what he does. Yeah. I'm going to read this to you. As part of his preparation, he spends an hour a day doing hand-to-hand combat and MMA drills, an hour of rehab and mobility, and then a third hour watching film. I got 2 questions off of that. When did you start doing the hand-to-hand combat? And I guess how much does that help you with your pass rush moves, right? Like that's got to be a major reason why you're focusing on that. And then that third hour watching film, I always love talking to prospects about what they prioritize when they turn on the film. What exactly do you look for when you turn on an opposing offensive tackle or an opposing offense? What tendencies, what things are you trying to pick apart when you turn on the film? Yeah.
Well, so that, that just depends on if it's in season or out of season. I'll start out with a little bit of a story. So I got to Purdue and I wasn't nearly ready to play college football. I knew that I'm going to have to work my butt off in order to be able to play and contribute as a freshman, so I knew I had to work hard. In that, I knew that my hands weren't there. My hips weren't there, my ankles, and I didn't have enough knowledge of the game. So I kind of got in this routine where the lift would get done, whether I wanted some extra, whether not. And I'd get with the then assistant, now our head strength coach, Dominic Reno, and we'd work hands, whether that was true MMA type hand combat stuff, or whether that was 100% applicable to football with footwork involved and all that kind of stuff. And then, my girlfriend's uncle actually was in the UFC for a while. He was in Bellator, just recently retired. His name is Matt Mitrione, and he was a Purdue alum also. So he worked with us a lot. And that was that for the MMA hand combat. Just figuring out those intricacies of playing with your hands as a defensive end is huge. They say a lot of the time, beat the hands, beat the man. And I think that's true for the most part. And after I do that, it'd be usually after a lift, and then I'd head in the training room and work on my mobility, get my body 100%, and my hips and my ankles with a focus, on mobility and prehab, basically trying to prevent any sort of injury I could. And then after that, I'd get in the film room, just go upstairs on the second floor where our defensive line room is and just grind it out. If it was in season, I would, I kind of have like a little schedule that I'd go through. So like Monday, I'd figure out, just watch a general overview of the team, right? So then on Tuesday, I'd figure out what they're doing exactly in terms of their run game and hone in on that. Wednesday was all third down type stuff, more of the pass protection. Mm-hmm. And I'd watch a lot of NFL guys, to see kind of what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. Thursday was kind of like, okay, now exactly what they're doing, kind of test yourself. Fridays, obviously, just cleaning stuff up in the details. Now, when it came to out of season film watching, I'm big on, obviously what I do. And, I like to base my game off of power, but I think I also have really good hands and some speed and some quickness, some change of direction and all that kind of stuff. So, I try to look at other guys, whether that's guys that are pretty similar to me in terms of how they play, how they move. Like I think I'm pretty similar to Cam Jordan in some ways. I think I'm pretty similar to Ryan Kerrigan and others. And JJ Watt. But, I think, a couple guys I like to watch are the Bosa brothers, obviously the way they use their hands and how they move and how they bait offensive tackles. So, watching just about every major NFL pass rusher, and kind of picking some stuff from their game and trying to apply it to mine. I think the guy I've probably watched the most, and I think I have the most similar game to is Khalil Mack. I don't, when I talk to like my coach or something, I say, yeah, I watch a lot of Khalil Mack. You don't think about it when you watch it, I think I play pretty similar. He's big in the speed to power, which is a lot of what I like to do. And winning with some speed, winning with some hands, some inside moves, So when I watch these veterans, these guys that are the best at what they do, it's really about picking up what they're doing and trying to apply it to my game, stuff I do like, stuff I don't, seeing how they win and, trying to replicate it and also make it my own. So
Khalil Mack, I think, is a great comparison. He's a little bit lighter than you, I believe, but you see a lot of the speed to power with Khalil Mack and where he really developed as a pass rusher, because year one, he was not phenomenal in that regard, but year two, year three is the hands, right? He worked his hands so well, has always been stout against the run. I think that comparison, I think I've seen the Bosa brothers compared, similar weight as you, right, in that 270 range. Kerrigan, Purdue legend, I think that's another good one as well. I think all that stuff is really good. So, I mean, turning on NFL tape, I was going to ask you if there are guys you watch. It's awesome that you are picking different things from these guys. A name I hear a lot for one specific move, the cross chop, is Unika Ngakoue. If you want to master the cross chop, getting Unika Ngakoue's tape on is
no doubt. I've watched some of him, and I've watched it more on Twitter than on the film, just grinding it out in the film room. That's a move it seems pretty cool, and it works a lot, but it's such a hard move to master.
Absolutely.
We always try to do it in practice, and that just learning it and doing it a couple of times is not enough because it's really complicated. But when you get it down, it's powerful. That's for sure.
100%. Max Crosby for the Raiders too has been phenomenal this year. A guy that's added a ton of weight since college.
Love how he plays. Love how he plays. He plays with swagger. He's loose, and he's also really explosive. And he's long strides, a long guy, and he can do just about everything. So I love to watch him play. Actually, he played against us the year before I got to Purdue against Eastern Michigan. I think he tore us up, but
he was awesome at Eastern Michigan, man. He played I went to San Diego State. He played our Aztecs one week, and we got brutalized by Max Crosby. He was dominant in college. Let's focus on your dominance in college, man. We've been talking a lot about pre-Purdue and your athleticism, what you eat, the baklava. This past year, man, you were absolutely phenomenal for Purdue, an 87.2 PFF grade, 90.6 pass rusher grade. One of the, if not the most impressive pass rusher in college football all of this year. Consistent week in and week out. You see that work ethic, that attention to detail really show up every single week. Did it feel like a breakout year for you? You've always been an uber productive player for Purdue. Year one, you played over 800 snaps for this team and had 55 total pressures. But did this year feel different for you? Did you really feel like you put it all together? Because I think that's what it looked like on tape.
I think to a certain extent, yes. Now, when you say breakthrough, I felt like this is the absolute best I played on film. And, something a lot of people that aren't really, football people notice, the stats, but some that we talk about internally is, how can you affect the quarterback, right? How can you stop the run? And I feel like I've been the cleanest on that I ever have been. And I've pass rushed the best I have been. Obviously you'd like to have a bunch of plays back, but you can't do that. I think I contributed a lot because of the attention I was getting. Whether I was a triple team or a double team, a couple chippers and whatnot to the team's success. I know my freshman year, we talked about 800 snaps and, I think this year we only played like 55 to 60 snaps a game. So we didn't have, because we were a pretty solid outfit, So I think that helped our defense out a lot, and I'll sacrifice my stats for an 8-4 season at Purdue any day.
Absolutely. Yeah. You guys are obviously phenomenal this year. A lot of what Braum is building, right? Braum is building something special in West Lafayette. You're a big part of that. Your brother's a big part of that. I want to get to him when we close. Looking ahead to this draft season, what are your goals or kind of what are your expectations entering this period, right? It is a very hectic period. You're going to be doing interviews like these. You're going to be talking to teams, talking to coaches, training, combine, bowl season, all that stuff. I guess what mindset are you entering this pre-draft process with? And I guess what are your goals and your expectations for yourself as you go through this like next 4-month period that will legitimately be like a big long interview, right?
Yeah. So, I had these past 3 years at Purdue, with the goal in mind of becoming the highest draft pick I possibly can be. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think this whole process is about maximizing my grade and showing what I'm all about to these teams. A lot of, not a lot of guys, but like, I think in the past people have came in with the I've made it mentality. And for me, it's like, no, like I have so much work to do. I'm coming in with the same mentality I've always had, ready to work, eager to learn and become the best version of myself I can be both on and off the field. For me now it's about a lot of mobility work, a lot of speed work, and honing in on the little details, the little muscles in your body and learning a lot of things, becoming a better football player on and off the field, whether it's on the grease board or, on the field with technique. It's really about just becoming a pro. Now you don't have school, you don't have classes, you don't have academic meetings. Your job is to be a professional football player and be the best version at that. So it's putting in all the time, all of my effort and, all my focus into becoming the best possible football player I can be.
And if your work at Purdue is any indication or any leading factor of what that's going to look like, I think you're going to have a phenomenal time in this pre-draft process. Let's close with this, George. Really appreciate the time.
Oh, for sure.
The Karlaftises are not leaving Purdue. You may be going to the draft, but the Karlaftis is staying. No. Yanni is someone I think everyone in West Lafayette and even in the country are excited to see continue to develop at Purdue. Speak to your brother's talents, where you feel like he wins, and obviously where you feel like he has the most opportunity to improve to fill some big shoes you're leaving in Purdue.
Yeah, well, really excited about Yanni, and at that have a younger sister and I have another younger brother, so hopefully they both choose to come to Purdue. Now with Yanni, his path, his journey is a little different than mine. He came into Purdue, enrolled early, just like me, but he came in injured from the season with the pretty bad hamstring injury. So his whole first 6 months really was focused on rehab, whereas mine was focused on becoming a better football player. So he was a little hindered by that. Didn't get a lot of PT this year for a lot of different reasons, but he's looking for a really strong year too. For him, he has a nose for the ball. He knows where the ball is going to go, and he loves to hit. He's physical. He's aggressive, and I think he's a really, really good pass rusher at that too. So he's versatile because he can drop and he can rush the passer, and I think he's going to be a really good football player for this team.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate the time, and I wish you the best of luck in this pre-draft process, and have a happy holiday with your family.
Thank you. You too.
George Karlaftis' background is insane. Growing up, like split between West Lafayette, Indiana, and then Greece. This is nuts. Dual citizenship. What an awesome dude. Great interview, Emerson, as well. Until next time, that's going to do it. Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, Tailgate.